It's Friday. I'm awake, and you're watching Midnight's Edge in the Morning. Joining me today, we have Script Doctor. How are you doing?
I am keeping warm. How are you?
I hate it when you leave little notes on my pillows. We're out of cornflakes, F you. Took me 3 hours to figure out that F you meant Felix Unger. I can't take it anymore, Script. No, I've been finding too many scripts. Good morning. We've got Culture Casino with us as well. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. It's been a lovely morning so far. It's Friday, which makes me extra excited. Plus, the Cameron's here, so I'm really excited. All right.
Yes, indeed. Bury the lead. We have Kamran Pasha with us as well. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir, and good morning to everyone on the panel. I haven't seen all of you in a couple of months. I've been off doing my own thing. I'm also in. It's also Script. I'm cold too. I'm currently in Pennsylvania, and I'm freezing here. It was 60 degrees yesterday, bizarrely, but now it's back to its normal 30 degrees. So it's cold, but it's great to see everyone.
You should be glad you haven't seen us all, because if you see all of me, then it's probably nightmare-inducing. We also have with us Mr. Chato, if he's back. He was there a second ago, but he had to run off screen. So I'll just say, hello, denizens, for him. There you go. Until he is back. But welcome and good morning, everybody. It is Friday. It is the last week or so, or a few days of February. So we're coming up on that February 30th deal where we're going to hear that announcement from Netflix about the Snyder Cut stuff. I'm kidding, of course, obviously. But good morning. Andre is away. He is at a concert. Lucky bastard.
Well, what's he saying? Do we know? Is it Dua Lipa? Is it Taylor Swift? What's he saying?
No, for once, it's not Rammstein. It's actually Henry Rollins in spoken word. So good for him. And so he left us alone, and we're in trouble because I have no idea what we're talking about today. At least I know what we're talking about. I don't know anything about it, though. Really, it's not my domain. But we have Cameron here to discuss a little bit of that Disney firing FTX stuff and all that business. And then maybe we'll get into the Warner Brothers earnings call after that if we've got time. But we only have a limited time with you, Cameron, so let's not waste too much time here. Let's get into some of these super chats, and then we'll get into the topics at hand. We got Hyper Guyver here who says, the topic doesn't contain the words cocaine and bear, then I don't care. Well, I know of at least one person on this panel who's seen Cocaine Bear, and it's Culture Casino.
Oh, you did? And did you like it?
I enjoyed the movie very much. I thought it was great.
I just realized I was muted. It's not an epic film. It's not going to be a blockbuster. It is fun. It's not a great movie. Is
it this generation Snake on a Plane?
Yes.
I was right. Okay.
So it's been compared to that a few times, but actually I think one of the reviews I read said something like, it's like Snakes on a Plane, only this one delivers or something like that.
I know it was inappropriate to laugh as many times as I did out loud in the theater, but I laughed a lot.
Let me
That's great.
You're gonna laugh, right? You know, I love those movies that are not meant to be anything except fun. You know, one of my favorites of that is a Hot Tub Time Machine, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Any Oscars?
Yeah, we need one of these movies right now too. Yeah.
It's not, I wouldn't say it's awful. A lot of people have said it's awful. I think Paul even said it was awful fun, or somebody said that. But I look at it and I'm like, you know what? It was a fun film. I took an older relative with me and he laughed. It was a good time. The music is great in it. It's very appropriate. White Lines is definitely in the film.
Is Cocaine by Eric Clapton in it too?
I don't recall. I don't think so. I think
that's a missed opportunity and a half.
The only problem is, and the writer, of course, claimed he never thought this would make it onto the screen. He's like, he wrote it, never expected it to be anything. So there's hint one. Hint two is there was a little bit of modern vernacular and dialogue that creeped into the film that was completely out of place. So you notice that.
Because you said it's supposed to be taking place in the 80s or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's in the 80s. There was a casting that was definitely out of place. Definitely 100% modern audience casting, right? But outside of that, I could not say enough good stuff about this. Again, it's not a great film. It's a fun film. It is not a great film, I think, but that's high praise right now. I went in there to be entertained and I wasn't disappointed. I
Well-
didn't. Don't set the bar too high. Don't set the bar too low. Just go in there, check your brain at the door, and again, the only thing that's accurate to based on a true story is the first 3 minutes of the film. That's it. After that, it is off the rails fun.
Well, it made 2 million in previews last night, and it's opening to close to another 1,000 screens today.
Yep.
So we'll see how it does this weekend.
And it's also here's the cool thing. They already adjusted the expectations upward. So they went from the $7 to $12 million range and then the $12 to $15 million range, and now they're up to $15 to $17 million range. So this thing is going upwards, and I think they figured out that people want to escape.
Yeah, and how many kids are going to pay to see Ant-Man and go into this?
I don't know about that.
I wouldn't be surprised. I already know of at least one or two, probably.
No.
Let's keep moving on here. We got Dark King who says one of two, reason why some reviewers will hate films that have a favorable take on communism is that the ideology killed about 100 million in the 20th century. In that regard, saying, oh, communism wasn't so bad, it had its good points, is the same level as saying fascism wasn't all bad, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Great, thank you for sharing that. I'm not sure how that relates to all this, but it's wonderful. I think many people would agree with those perspectives. Okay.
Callum Lau says, are they fixing Roald Dahl because he is white and that's it? Are they going after Shakespeare? Well, for one, they're doing it because the company behind it is all for it. Secondly,
So the estate holders. Yeah.
when the estate holders okayed it, probably. Like if you are, I don't know for sure, but I'm sure that's one of the main factors. The other ones I feel is just that it's another good reason to sell some more books, get some press, virtue signal on top of it all. I mean, you insert it here.
It's what they did with Dr. Seuss, right? The same kind of thing. They were, and as a result, people ran out and bought all these Dr. Seuss books that weren't actually being changed or censored or suppressed, right? And it raised Dr. Seuss sales.
Well, like I said, the timing of this it does not seem to be a coincidence considering we have that new movie coming out this summer or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a big, first of all, my view is that as an artist myself, I'm pretty much a free speech, absolutist. Let people say what they want. If you don't like it, you refute it, ignore it, you counter it, right? Do something better. And that's my belief, and books are always reflect the time period in which they're in, and in order to understand where human beings are, you need to understand where they were, and if you don't understand where they were, you will repeat what they did, right? So going back and changing books to me is destructive, and because there's no way to go back and be offended by the Iliad if you want to be, right? That's all. Helen of Troy becomes a sexual object, right? And that's inappropriate, right? And so I mean, you can find something that violates any human being's beliefs and values in literature out there, in any literature. So whatever, we are where we are. Estates often just their goal is to simply make money, and they're often run by bureaucrats and lawyers and others who are just looking at a spreadsheet and looking at where they think culture is and whether they think they're going to be able to make the most money and rather than sharing the philosophical values of the peoples whose estates were founded on. So it is what it is.
There you go. And then we have Callum Lyle again, who says, the only movie I want to see is 65. Well, that comes out what, next week or the week after? I can't remember now.
Is it? I think it's the week after. Let me double check. But
I'm looking. It's up against some other movie too, and I'm trying to remember exactly what.
I want to see Tetris.
Me too, but I think it comes out the same weekend as Scream, if I'm not mistaken.
It's March 10th. So yeah, it's 2 weeks out.
Yeah. There you go. And then Miguel.
I'm excited for it. I mean, I'm sorry. I just feel like
well, it still hasn't got a rating yet. I think they're fighting for a PG-13 is my guess. Miguel Farr says, Tom, can Chato do a script about Cameron's culture?
Oh, that's just a chat using all our names. Okay.
That was kind of
I see. I hope it's not an AI because I don't play with AI. I just don't do it.
no.
Yeah, you have, let's see, March films. So on March 3rd, you're going to get Creed 3,
Nobody cares.
Children of the Corn.
Nobody cares.
Already seen it.
You're going to get, you're going to get.
You already got one. Don't need another one.
Yeah, and then the rest of them are kind of garbage. And then after that, you're going to get on March 7th, you get a bunch of junk. It doesn't look good. Let's see, March 10th. Okay, you have Scream 67. Whatever it is, Scream 6 is coming out. The Magic Flute is coming out. That's in limited release. So those are the only two films that are going to compete there. And then on the 17th, we start to get into it. We have Shazam 65. What's the other one? There's another one there.
Shazam will be good. I think that's going to be fine.
And then the week after that's John Wick. I think the John Wick film's going to do very well.
Yeah. And then we've got Dr. Longdongler here who sends us a thumbs up. If you haven't hit that thumbs up yet, please do so. And with that, we got a few more super chats, but we're going to hold off for just a little bit on those because we only have Cameron for a short time. And before we get into all of that, we got one specifically for him. So let's start there with that, and then we'll get into the other stuff. Action Com wants to know, Cameron, what is your take on short films? I've asked Chris Gore about Academy Award nominated shorts, and he's given his thoughts. Do you think this is entertainment that is being overlooked?
Well, I mean, I've made short films. I think short films are absolutely important. First of all, to train people to become writers, directors, and crew, and I think they're pivotal in the evolution. It's like, you have to go to high school to go to college, and so they're just important in the evolutionary process of training in this industry. But artistically, some short films are absolutely incredible. I've seen short films. A friend of mine made a short film that was maybe 7 minutes long that hit me so deeply emotionally. It's visually stunning, and he literally made out $200 out of his pocket and went around DC with a camera and filmed very moving, evocative film. I just posted on my Patreon. For those who are members of my Patreon, a scoop. A friend of you all know the tragic story of Helena Hutchins, who was killed by Alec Baldwin on the set of Rust. He shot her, and there's a lot of legal stuff happening about that now. So she was a cinematographer on that movie. Turns out that a young woman that I've been mentoring for some time made a short film with Helena Hutchins just before she was killed. And they haven't released it because there's obviously a lot of emotion around that this is I think this is Helena's final actual artistic work that was finished before she was killed. And so she sent it to me yesterday, and it's a really beautiful film, emotionally touching film about a young woman in LA trying to find where she belongs, fitting in. And I've experienced all those emotions when I first moved to LA, of the loneliness of that city, and then finding your crowd. It's just 12 minutes long, and it's stunningly shot. I mean, Helena is an artist. I mean, this was my friend, this is a young woman who's essentially a production assistant who knew Helena. And Helena said, yeah, I'll do your short film. And this short film looks like a feature film level quality of visuals because Helena brought her A game. And so if anyone wants to join my Patreon, you can come see this film that, Ms. Hutchins was an artist, and, God rest her soul. And I hope she finds justice. But yeah, I mean, short films can be wonderful works of art. And it's interesting you asked this question because I just posted Helena's last short film on my Patreon. So it's interesting.
There you go. And so with that, let's break away from the super chats for just a few minutes here. And let's talk a little bit about Disney firings.
Yeah.
Because this was something that you had somewhat scooped, although we kind of knew these were coming. Then there was the hubbub with Chapek, and then all of a sudden, Bob Iger says that he's going to basically do the same thing anyway, and now we're starting to learn a little bit more about that. So why don't you give us the overall gist of what's going on here, Cameron?
So yeah, so I posted to my Patreon just a day ago a message I'd received. There's I have a few Disney insiders who have joined and feed me stuff, and they've actually been able to get me things that weren't real scoops. I mean, I scooped that the hiring freeze that Chapo was going to announce by 48 hours, but trades didn't cover for another 48 hours. Someone inside Disney sent me an actual memo that this was happening. I also scooped it's been a year ago that remember that memo that set all the madness in motion when Bob Chapek said, I'm going, we're going to get out of politics. And then he had this massive backlash, right, in the Florida bill. And that was sent to me by one of these Disney insiders a couple hours before Variety put it on, so I was like, I don't even know if it's true, but I posted it. And then that memo was posted word for word on Variety 2 hours later. So it was true. So that same person who sent me the memo reached out to me as an employee at Disney and sent me internal thing. And I'm just going to read it very briefly what their message was. Their message they sent me was, quote, Disney layoffs have begun, and you'll find this very interesting. First affected departments are recruiting, talent acquisition, and diversity and inclusion. And he asked, didn't we discuss the Chapek regime was starting to prepare the field for layoffs in HR? If you remember last summer, there was some conversation that Chapek was going to start restructuring HR, and that had come on my Patreon where these people had said, look, we're hearing that HR is going to be the first thing to go because they need to get the wokesters out of the company, and HR is where they're recruited and where they're protected, right? And so that was something that was last summer they had reported to me, and now that here we go, it's happening, and they're starting with and when recruiting talent acquisition is part of HR, they're bringing people in, and diversity and inclusion. We know that's DEI. So this person says it's also very telling that they're firing people over at DEI. It almost tells itself. This is basically an admission of how bad the woke infection is. Everyone thought, now this is interesting. This is from the Disney employee. They say everyone thought they were going to start over at DMED, which was the division that Chapek had set up with Cream Daniel, because they fired Cream Daniel after they fired Bob Chapek, and so. But they didn't start there. They thought they were going to start at DMED to trim the payroll accounting according to the new structure that was set by Iger. But they're starting at HR and diversity and inclusion. And so that was shocking to this Disney employee who said everyone inside the company was expecting that the first people that are going to get axed by Bob Iger are going to be the Bob Chapek loyalists. I mean, the immediate loyalists like Cream Daniel were let go within 24 hours, right? But just the divisions that Chapek had tried to put together, that they're going to be the first things, because that's what you do when a new regime comes in. You get rid of the remnants of the old regime because they might not be loyal. Instead, they started at the one place that nobody in the company expected, and certainly Hollywood didn't expect. They started on HR and diversity, equity and inclusion, which was Bob Chapek's plan. And many people in the industry had been very happy to hear that Mr. Chapek had been let go because they thought Bob Iger was going to come in and protect these divisions. And I'll be honest, many in the fandom assumed that was what's going to happen. That Chapek, Mr. Iger is a wokester himself, and that he's there to protect the woke. He's been brought back in. Well, that's what's happening is the DEI people, supposedly looking for diversity, are the first people being let go as not necessary under the new corporate structure. And so this is a claim they made. And so is this true? And then they sent me multiple LinkedIn accounts, announcements from their colleagues at DEI who were announcing, people put this stuff out there, like I just got fired. And so I think, Tom, I sent to you so you've got them. I sent you some screenshots. These are people. And again, we wish no one ill. I've been fired. It's not good. I've had to, people need to feed their families. We're not taking any joy in this. We're just sharing that this is confirming what the Disney Insider said, is that multiple people as of yesterday started posting that I've been let go. So why don't we look at a couple of these? So we've got Ms. Brianna Nichols, and she is apparently an HBCU, which my understanding is historically Black colleges and university, if that's correct, right? Yes. HBCU outreach and engagement. So that's her position. That's clearly a diversity recruiting position. And she says here, unfortunately, my time with the Walt Disney Company will come to an end at the end of the month. So that's a week from now, as I was impacted by the layoffs. And then she goes on to thank people. And she says, please send all remote TA campus recruiting, DEI, and program management opportunities my way. Thank you in advance. And so that's one person. She's in recruiting and DEI, and she sadly announced that she's been let go, right? And then we've got 3 more that they sent. If you want to, it's like, is that just a one-off? I mean, there's 3 more that were just renounced, and it's, let's look at a couple more of these. So we've got Ms. Pooja Desai, and she says yesterday, and she's in, yesterday was a difficult day for me. My colleagues and leaders we're informed that our projects are ending early, marking the last day of the company, and then this says to open to work. And so you're like, well, what projects are that? So you go down to the hashtags Ms. Desai has. So they're Disney, open to work, talent acquisition, development, recruiting. So that's HR. That's HR, right? So Ms. Desai was obviously in some kind of project in HR to bring certain people in, and that's been terminated. So we got Ms. Chrissy Barrigan, and now she says it very specifically. She calls herself a magic maker, a people person, and she says she is a DEI advocate. That's in her log line at the top. And she says, unfortunately, the first round of Disney layoffs have begun. Here we go, primarily in the talent acquisition, recruiting, DEI, and contractor side of things. And she said, I already know some of my fellow cast members impacted by this. She's currently still has her job, but others are not. And so she's saying, if you're a cast member and you have not connected, basically, if you've been let go, please reach out to me. I'll see if I can open up my network to you. So Ms. Barrigan still has her job, and I wish her well. But here we go. I mean, that's that. And these are all on the same day. So this was happening immediately, and people were putting this out. So I think we have one more that they sent to me. So we've got that. There we go. And this woman is Mernette Martin, and she's a technical recruiter. So again, HR, and and she says, I'm with the 7K others who were sadly laid off. She cried, which I understand. I didn't enjoy the first time I was laid off. First time I ever cried for a job. She goes off, and she says some gracious things. There's no one's insulting Disney. That's wise of them. That would be bad, to publicly put that out there. To those in the same position as me, cheers to our next chapter. So there's others, and so we've got all these people that are coming from the very things Bob Chapek needed to do in order to get people off his back inside the company, which is to change who was being recruited, to change who was being brought into the company, and to change the focus away from just, as a minority myself, I think it's always great to reach out to people that maybe you hadn't thought of before, but are qualified for the job, right? Who don't necessarily have a network. I think many people's critiques of DEI initiatives is that often who are qualified for the job becomes a lower priority on that list, right? And so it just becomes staffing people there based on ethnicity or various identities rather than their talent. I don't think it should be either or, but unfortunately, I think in practice it often becomes either or. Either you're a talented white guy or you're not as talented minority. That shouldn't be the way it's played. Unfortunately, the industry plays it that way. And so when you're having that kind of way that's being put in effect, it makes sense when you're like, we got to get back to making money. We got to have the best people possible. If you guys aren't thinking in terms of the best people possible and trying to find some people that we hadn't thought about who are the best people possible, if you're not thinking those ways, we're going to start scaling down this division, right? That's what's happening. Interestingly, this is happening for the last couple of days now. And Trey Varieties, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, nobody's talking about it. These people are putting it out publicly and no one's reporting it.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it, Cameron? And the funny thing is this is kind of rolling downhill from the tech layoffs that started back in November. Mm-hmm. You had about 28% of the layoffs that were happening in a lot of these mega corps were falling in line with the HR and DEI initiative programs. I mean, HR and DEI is hand in hand. They're the same thing. Yeah. It's two sides of the same coin. But you're starting to see that now roll into entertainment, and it has to. They overhired in these areas. They knew that, these are make work jobs. They're not required. And when you're a big company and you see the future of the economy, like everybody who's reading the tea leaves is right now, that we're in a recession, it's going to get much worse before it gets better. You're not going to hire anybody. So why are you carrying all these people in all these positions that don't produce anything? These are the least productive people in a corporation. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I think the irony is, let's just say the irony is that when the I call it DIE push.
Me too. Yeah.
The die push happened. The people who are already there, let's say the core talent, they weren't displaced by new hires. Mm-hmm. A DIE division was created, and the diversity was poured into that division, or something like, checking to see whether bad people were doing bad things, like at Twitter. What was it called? The police.
Yeah.
the internal police force. And so these are two groups that could easily be lopped off and won't change the profitability or the sort of the viability of the companies actually operating. They're meaningless. So it is ironic that as a percentage, maybe a company increased its diversity, but didn't increase its diversity in the core areas where DI would normally want it to happen, in the core talent pool that's actually doing the heavy lifting.
Mhm.
And I've always said that it's look at the pool of talent available.
Right.
That's really the key. You don't hire based on
Mhm.
the rules of DI. You hire based on what pool is available. And if you go to STEM, let's say, and I'm just going to exaggerate, if you've got 1,000 South Asian computer scientists,
Mhm.
and you've only got 100 from another grouping,
Right.
you're going to get a higher percentage of qualified people from the 1,000 than from the 100.
Right.
So I've always told people, find ways to increase the funnel, not artificially hire people. That should be your job. Your job is to increase the available funnel of talented people.
But that takes time, Paul. That's
Yes,
about
it does.
changing culture, and that's a generational issue, which is a good thing. But these guys are thinking quarterly returns.
And I would say we already had gotten there where, oh, go ahead, Culture.
So I was just going to say it's also a bigger problem because now you think when you look around at these companies, tech companies, whatever else, right? You look around, the largest percentage of women don't work in the field that are going to be required going forward. So I'm preparing everybody. The next narrative is going to be women hardest hit. Well, of course, because they work in the fields of HR, they work in the people business, right? They don't work in the science, build shit. I'm sorry.
Right, exactly. Like if this was a bunch of, industrial jobs that were being laid off, majority of them would be men.
Yeah,
right.
We say not is in the majority. It's just about majorities. There are definitely women.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying the next narrative here is going to be, women are hardest hit. Women aren't being able to find jobs in the tech industry anymore. There's all this stuff because those jobs are in DIE and HR.
Well,
and
we've already seen this Culture. We've already seen some of these people freak out.
Mhm.
It's not just women, and necessarily, it's also people, who are not white. And then the first thing they do is scream racism.
Well, and again, I mean, but that's the other problem with hiring with a quota and not hiring with,
Well, absolutely.
But that's neither here nor there, and that's not the larger conversation. I'm just preparing everybody that the next wave of whining is going to be coming from the feminist side of the equation, because again, there aren't going to be more jobs out there. DI is not going to grow for the next year, right?
Well, I can tell you, we all know exactly where this goes, right? Like we've seen it in the BAFTAs. This just happened.
Yeah.
Okay. What did they do? They said, well, the best person is going to win the award. Bless you, Paul. They're going to say the best person is going to win the award. Fine and dandy. But guess what they did? They eliminated the separation of the awards, meaning there's no male awards and no female awards. Guess what happened? White men sweep the BAFTAs.
Yeah.
Almost as if that's the deeper strategy behind these kinds of things.
What did you start this problem for in the first place? Because according to you, too many white men were winning everything. So your fix basically got you right where you started from again, according to you. Not only that, it was worse because not one single fucking woman won anything because you took away the sex categories.
Well, but they won PR points with certain trans activists, right? And so that
to a point maybe, but otherwise the backlash I'm hearing they're getting is not good on that. And I know that's separated from this, but it's my example of where it leads to is my point.
Yeah.
But anyway, so moving on with that, so like that's pretty clear where a lot of these cuts are going to come in. It makes sense. Like Paul's saying, these are extremities that are unnecessary for the company. They don't add any value to the company at the end of the day. Sure, they may help the company look more diverse, but is that really helping your company in the grand scheme of things, right? That's the bigger question here. No, it's not. It's just costing your company more money than anything at the end of the day.
Yeah, and
Yeah, the diversity thing is it's a hard thing. Here in Ontario, a health organization attached to the Ontario government hired a diversity hire who was diverse, and this individual populated the organization. This wasn't a manufacturing company; it was a healthcare related organization. Populated it 100% from people from her ethnic food group. So, and I won't say who it is or what group, but apparently that's not uncommon.
Sure.
That the people you know or the people you bring in. So it wasn't really diverse at all.
Nope.
And if a white person had been running the dye group, that they would have been pillared. They would have been fired if all they did was hire white people. So
look,
they're finding this more and more in smaller organizations. That
well, and this is where I say if they want to do their activism, if they want to push for DEI, the place to push for it is in the schools. You need to get kids when they're younger. You need to get them before they go to college or whatever their next step is going to be. Then they're ready for these jobs. So when they actually get these jobs, they're worth a shit, and they're not like that. You know, like for instance, that writer on Superman who got fired because she sucked and was crying racism. It's like, no, it's because you fucking suck.
Well,
That's the problem.
And I have friends of mine who knew all the writers on that show, who are writers and producers, and they were saying these are the most progressive, non-racist people we've ever met, and they were angry to see them being labeled as such. This Tristan wasn't just, in their view, was just a bad writer. It wasn't promoted. And then all these people have to carry, well, aren't you the people that fired that person? And they have to carry that on them for something that's not fair. So.
Again, I mean, it's the problem is if you are unprepared in education, going into a job, you're going to be unprepared for the rest of your life unless you put in the work while you're in the job to actually learn it. But we don't have meritocracy anymore. There's no working your way up through the industry. They bring in people at levels that they just aren't prepared to perform at. That happens so often in Hollywood and at these big major companies now. It's staggering to me.
Yeah. Well, I'll give a personal example because I don't share that philosophy. Look, I like every human being. You go out of the way to open up doors to your friends and people you trust, right? And so I've worked on shows. I'll give you an example. I worked on a show once. I won't name the poor person, where I brought on a young Muslim PA because like there are very few Muslims in the industry. This person's got. I brought them in, and they weren't performing. And the fact that not every one of the crew liked them. When I heard that they were causing some drama on the set, I pulled them into my office. I said, "What the hell are you doing? I didn't bring you in here to create drama on my show, and you're not performing at the level I expected." And I chewed this person out because it made me look bad.
And what was the reaction?
Those guys they were shocked because because people think, well, and part of this person was beginning to think that I got a producer on the show. Everyone was thinking, well, people actually think we can't say anything to him because he's obviously his patron. I'm like, I'm not his patron. If he's not doing his job, I'm not his patron because that reflects on me that I'm patronizing poor behavior. And, that's how I live my life.
But because you're a professional.
Yeah. And I'm not going to be embarrassed about bringing in people of my ethnic or religious identity and that I trust. But if they don't perform, they're the first ones out because they're making me look bad, right? You got to be. And I told them when I did it, you have to bring your A game because it reflects on me. They didn't bring their A game. And so
again, Cameron, that's a you. I mean, you were an industry professional, right?
I've got a very similar story to that. I was working on a show in British Columbia, and the key executive producer brought in their nephew as an assistant, and the nephew was terrible, incompetent, lazy, didn't do anything. And I went straight to the EP and I said, if you found out what your nephew was doing, you'd be incredibly embarrassed. He got angry at me because I was, of course, insulting his nephew. But then he was also telling me, well, you have to go to the showrunner and tell them that. It's like, the showrunner's not going to say anything. He has no idea what's going on with this. Like, you have to do this. And it just kind of blew up. And basically what ended up happening is that the nephew was stayed on, but he was just moved around to other areas where he'd do less impact because he wouldn't actually do anything for it. But word traveled around as the months progressed and we wrapped up the season. And everybody was like, yeah, this EP, he's got to go because he's made this entire year working on this show miserable because he would not take responsibility for bringing in his family. And yeah, and then that show didn't get picked up for a following season. So, I mean, it comes to the case. You have the inverse. Like Kamran did the responsible thing.
Yeah.
And this executive producer that I worked with did not, and thought they were in the right, and ended up costing a lot of people their jobs.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it ultimately, in the world that we're living right now, you just have to be a person of your own integrity, because we can't control these larger historical societal forces that are happening, the cultural swings, and we can't control them. All you can do is, are you going to be a person of moral integrity in your life, right? Or at least try to be. We all make mistakes. We all fail to live up to our ideals at times, but that I'm trying to hold myself to that standard. And it's just because I don't think my community, my Muslim community in Hollywood, is going to be helped by having mediocre people getting a bad name. I think it's only going to close more doors. There aren't that many doors open for us anyway. And when you show up on set and people don't like you, like, because human nature is like, these damn Muslims. Right? We do that, right? We do that. We generalize about entire communities based on individuals. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to accept that. If you don't perform, you're out.
Generally speaking, anytime I've been on involved with a crew, a wide divergent, they're all working their asses off. I rarely see slackers, of from any religious stripe or whatever. They're there because they love the business, and they know what needs to be done. Just sort of a smaller example, my son is a mechanic. They get kids from high school. My son's a kid, he's 25, but they get co-op students from high school. And he said most of them spend all the time on their phone. And he said the two recent kids they just brought in, they each put their phones away in the locker and then just came right out and did not, then weren't on their phone all day. Mm-hmm. Everyone in the shop was shocked. And they were there to work. And people are going, crap, I'd hire these kids. These are good, but not the other ones. So it's all your life is in your own hands. It's more than you think. You just have to take control of it. And as I told my kids, if you show up on time and do your work, then you're ahead of 90% of all your other student friends.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, I have to leave in about 10, 15 minutes. So I just want to broach this because it's not really something that's revealed on this channel, but I wanted to just raise it because we have discussed it on this channel. I've actually been on with Paul and Coulter and Script when I've talked about this last time. So the interesting development on one of our friends' channels is our friend Doomcock put out a surprise report yesterday, which surprised me. And I've now been in contact with him regarding it, and he's giving me some information. He put out a report where he said that his sources inside of Disney have reached out to him in the past few days and revealed to him things that shocked him, including that apparently there really is some kind of hidden FTX scandal inside of Disney that the company is trying. And so, that apparently very specific that Chapek was removed when he discovered its existence, and that's why that he was.
I would say more allegedly than apparently, because let's be real on this. Like, this is some pretty dicey stuff if it's true. So we gotta be clear up front on that. So
let me clarify one thing. I've had a theory about this that I've always stated is speculation. I've always stated that because no one has come to me and said it's true. I've had people claim to me that they've heard rumors that it's true. One person on my Patreon, one person reached out to me and Patreon said, "Look, I had a meeting on this thing, and there was talk about it." I was like, "Oh, well, that's just talk. It's not somebody inside of Disney telling you this, right?" And so, yes, allegedly, all I can say is what Doomcock reported, that he heard from his sources that this is what is happening, and that these are sources inside of Disney that he has worked with before and he trusts. And I asked him what's going on with this, and he said they reached out to him directly this week. He had not prodded the conversation. For some reason, they felt the desire to share this. Who knows what that means internally, why someone would do that. But they felt the need. Doomcock, we want to let you know this is what's happening, allegedly, right? Okay. What's interesting about it is it's the first time anyone has claimed to have heard an actual report from a Disney insider that what I've speculated is true. My speculation, for those who don't, is in very simple form. I have speculated that Bob Chapek's mysterious firing, which to this day still doesn't quite add up, and the story in the Wall Street Journal that keeps changing as to what happened. But what we seem to know is the CFO, Christine McCarthy, is basically a week after an earnings call where the earnings didn't go that well. She went about 10 days later to the board, had a secret meeting, and Mr. Chapek was ousted on a Sunday night while he was in the middle of an Elton John concert and was basically, don't get off the stage. You're no longer the CEO, right? And wasn't allowed to come in the office the next morning. And the next morning, Bob Iger was in the office, right? And so I have stated on this channel my speculation for some time that this is the timing of it relates to, because at the exact same time this was happening, we had the FTX bankruptcy and the discovery that there was billions of dollars missing from this FTX one, and that apparently a lot of prominent people and corporations lost money in it. And initially they weren't going to announce who was involved in it. They've since put out the judges since put out a spreadsheet in which, interestingly, Disney does not appear, but most other Hollywood companies do appear. And so there's questions as to no division of Disney did anything at all in this, allegedly. But there's a lot of other, I have my own theories as to how that could be true and also not appear in that report. But that's a separate conversation. But I think it is interesting that our friend Doomcock, who has been right on many occasions, is for the first time claiming someone has said to him, this was allegedly why Mr. Chapek was removed. And we do know this. And the last time I was on with Culture and Paul and with Script, we had the shocking thing of this gentleman that Paul knows from Canada, who was the FTX spokesman, right? He had come out and said in an interview at CNBC, he had dropped the name Iger when talking about big investors that had also gotten suckered by this, and they immediately changed the conversation. We don't have any details. So it was interesting to hear Mr. Iger's name. One of my sources inside Disney, the next day after we did this report on Midnight's Edge, or at least claimed, we had this interesting conversation about Iger's name being dropped by the FTX spokesman. The next day, I received a message from one of my sources inside Disney on my Patreon saying that, look, we've gotten word that the division heads are being told that anyone talking about FTX needs to be reported to legal. And if you hear any of your employees even talking about this or implying that we're in any way involved in this, they need to be reported to legal for a conversation, that they shouldn't be talking about this. So, assuming my source is not lying to me, that I know they are in Disney and they have not lied to me in the past, that they actually had those conversations, suggests that's not what a company does when something is a silly rumor, in my opinion. When they want people, when they threaten people with go to the corporate legal's office to be lectured about keeping your mouth shut and not talking about such things, suggests to me they don't want people talking about something that is real. That's just my personal speculation about that. But it is interesting that that's happened. I encourage those of you who would like, go see Mr. Doomcock's channel, Overlord DVD, and see what he said about that. If I am correct, my speculation is correct, and the allegations that Doomcock are now putting out there that support that that's exactly what happened, then the fact that this is now being leaked out to people like Doomcock intentionally suggests that in my opinion, that the dam is going to break. And if there is the thing that Tom is concerned about, that if this is really true, then this is massive scale nefarious criminal activity on a scale beyond Enron. Then if they're intentionally leaking out, that suggests that there is a rebellion to holding that information, and maybe pressures from the people like Nelson Peltz and other investors who want to know what's really going on inside of Disney are building. So that information, if it is true, then I think that dam is going to break. And in the next few months, we may see some shocking news come out. It's the first time anyone in the 6 months that I've been speculating this has come out and said someone inside of Disney has told me this is true. It's the first time I've heard it. So it's interesting. It may turn out that my speculation is false and people are lying to Doomcock. That may be what it turns out, because this is the world we can't control.
Well, the mystery behind Chapek's ouster is I can't believe how watertight that still is.
Well,
yeah, the stories don't make sense still.
Yeah, it's funny because anything that's come out, those stories that Kamran just referred to, it depends on where you get them. Like either whether it be people over at Puck Media or some other sources that are out there that are familiar to us. You look at the way those stories are being reported. None of them are consistent. There's no consistency to the explanations why Chapek was booted. And and again, you mentioned right at the beginning when you started talking about this, Kamran, that O'Leary's, when Kevin O'Leary was on CNBC, he dropped Iger's name alongside like other people that are involved here. That entire interview, if you watch it beginning to end, I mean, it's amazing just how many people were embroiled in this scandal and to what extent, and if he's artificially trying to hold up or lift up Miss McCarthy, walking in the door as part of possibly a succession plan, which I think is ridiculous. She doesn't have the tools for it. But it is fascinating, and there's a lot there to support it. And Disney's been involved with FTX, kind of, if you think about the fact that FTX was sponsoring, I think, one of their ice dancing shows, Disney on Ice thing or something.
And they did announce they were involved in crypto. That was actually announced in a PR release.
Yeah, and so
they did announce that. So that's
yeah,
public, going to get involved in crypto in some fashion.
It's just very strange. And like I said, the more you climb down that rabbit hole, the more you can be shunted off into different areas of, investment. You referenced the lady that finally settled her whistleblower case with Disney and so on and so forth. And the fact that we don't have collective closing of investigations into Disney in the various forms that they've been investigated has been fascinating to me too. And we're going on 5 years now of the lack of traction on those cases.
Well, Culture, you brought up the thing that to me is just interesting about this. To discuss my Patreon, which is this whistleblower who settled. I believe her name was Miss Cuba, right? Yeah, who was an accountant who claimed that there was a $3 billion annual hole in the books that they were covering up with all kinds of accounting shenanigans. I mean, that's illegal, right? And she claimed that she reported this internally. This was during Mr. Iger's initial reign in 2017. So again, Mr. Iger name again. This wasn't Bob Chapek. And that she was let go for, hey, we don't want you looking in those books. What are you doing looking in there, right? She was let go. And then she went to the SEC and whistleblowed. And SEC apparently did an investigation. Of course, they said afterwards, we didn't find anything. I've worked with the SEC. So I'm just not going to comment on when they choose to find and not find things. Certainly powerful people can often have things not found, but whatever. So, however, they interestingly enough settled with her for, I guess, her claim that she was falsely terminated, right? Under fraud. Yes, but what's interesting about her claim is this number, $3 billion, that there's a $3 billion hole going back to 2017 that they keep trying to cover somehow with accounting shenanigans. That's a big hole, right? And so what's interesting about this allegation that Doomcock is putting out there is that his sources are telling him that the investment stake in FTX, however it was engineered, whether it was engineered through Disney itself, whether it was engineered through some kind of shell company, whether it was a loan given to Bob Iger and told, you invest this, make a profit, take some, give it back to us, right? That there are all kinds of ways you can do it so it doesn't show up in those spreadsheets. However it is done in this theory, the number that he says is $3 billion was invested. It's a specific number, $3 billion, which is the number that Ms. Cuba said was missing, right, in 2017. And what's also interesting in Mr. Iger's report in the last couple of weeks, where said 7,000 people are being let go, specifically, the number is they're reducing content costs outside of sports, outside of ESPN, which is a separate division, reducing content costs for entertainment by $3 billion. So the number $3 billion keeps popping up in these strings. So again, in my opinion, is where there's smoke, there's fire, and these numbers are all lining up. And the fact, as someone I think said in the chat, you got some angry people being let go, 7,000 people being let go. If any of those 7,000 people have knowledge of some shady stuff, maybe it shouldn't have been let go, right? But because that's somebody who has that kind of information can send it to somebody like a Doomcock.
I mean, again, like allegedly on all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we've already established that now.
Yeah, but I just want to be clear because, they could also be just telling the employees these kind of things just because there is no involvement and they don't want people even getting the idea that there is, aside from whatever personal investments some people in the company may have had. But again, I don't understand enough about this stuff. But
I just don't think that people, the fact that 24 hours after our conversation on this channel, I get this email saying a memo just went out to division heads saying, send anyone talking about this to legal. It should be irrelevant what we're talking about on a YouTube channel about speculation. I just think that's an extreme reaction. I don't think that's normal corporate governance to rumors. It is the reaction of someone that's afraid. That's my opinion. I could be wrong.
Right. I'm just trying to think of other angles on this because, again, I have very
angles on this. A lot of people
little knowledge of this type of stuff, so I have very little to add to it anyway. But there's
people still telling me I'm wrong, and that's fine. I may be wrong. I don't think I am.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't understand it enough one way or another to tell you one way or the other.
Well, the basic idea of doing a scam like that is very simple. I have a $3 billion hole that I keep trying to cover and hide, right, with leaves on top. It's very simple. And then somebody says to me, look, I don't got $3 billion. This is what we can do. You give me a loan. I will take it to the casino. I'm really good at this. I'll come back with twice the money. I'm going to take a cut of that. You fill up the hole with the remainder, and the numbers look great, and we both win. That's the idea of it, that FTX was gambled upon in order to get a profit, because the idea was this thing was just going to keep going. No one saw the black swan event of it collapsing, and the thing was just going to go, and we'll double our money in 1 year, and then we'll cover the hole, and I'm going to make a profit off of this, and you're good. And this issue that's haunting you for 5 years, you can't cover this hole, will be covered. That's the theory of it. It's not implausible in a world where SBF, Bankman-Fried himself, was taking $4 billion loans from his company, and the money was vanishing. This is a world of complete, utter corruption. Whatever is touching FTX was corruption on a scale we can't understand. Could you imagine being 29-year-old kid? I'm just loan me $4 billion from my own company, and I'm going to run away with it? It's not normal behavior. And these are people being supported by the most powerful people in the country that we know of publicly. And Mr. Iger's name is being dropped about it. Birds of a feather. If this is what Mr. Fried is doing, why wouldn't other people do that? I mean, they're all acting in this criminal fashion. That's my opinion, allegedly. We know Mr. Fried is, in my opinion, a criminal. That's my opinion. Certainly, he's being charged as such, and others would behave that way, I think.
No, I think there's plausibility to your opinion and speculation there. And the other part too is you can also pose this very factual question of all the studios, which one needs the most money now, right away, immediately, to make up their costs? And Disney's at the top of that list.
So I guess we'll find out. We'll find out in a few months if there really is an opening of leaks, if they won't be able to hold it back. And if it's somebody lying to us, then it's just going to go away.
Right. Well, we got a few more things to take care of here before we do lose you, Cameron, because we got a couple super chats.
Yeah, I've got a couple. I got about 10 minutes, and I got to take off. So.
All right.
I appreciate you, Tom, letting me share my speculations. I know
that's fine. I just don't know enough about it to really comment on it.
And you're fair to I mean, I can be wrong, and people have said there's stuff that doesn't make sense, but your solution is crazier than the stuff that doesn't make sense. Fair enough.
All right. Well, we got Callum here who says, before Cameron leaves in 10 seconds, do you honestly believe that Brie Larson will support her co-stars in that stupid Marvels movie?
I think Ms. Larson has taken a major hit in her career in the last few years. I don't know whether she's been humbled or not. I do think, because I've said very clearly, I shockingly loved, Ms. Marvel, the show. I was blown away because I didn't want to like it, and I assumed it was terrible. And I was blown away by it. So I'm watching that movie for her. I'm watching that movie for Kamala Khan, who ended up being a wonderful, wonderful character, at least as portrayed on that show. So if Ms. Larson is smart, she will let the others shine in this movie, and in order to get her career back, she's going to have to be a team player on this one.
Indeed. And then Waltman says, Cameron, I'll always push the band Sabaton for you. So I would suggest their Curlus Rex album, since it centers around Swedish history.
Well, I love my Viking friends. I wish Andre was here. He's Norwegian. It's next door, right? But thank you for that. Thank you for that recommendation.
Indeed. And then we have let's see here. What was the next one? 6. Oh, thank you. Jimmy B says, Cameron, you're the money man and your Patreon rocks. Keep doing God's work, and you'll continue to be rewarded. There you go. Yes, you can keep up with Cameron on his Patreon, as Jimmy B points out.
Well, thank you, Jimmy. Sometimes in Hollywood, the reward comes in the afterlife. It doesn't always come in this world.
Just by the way, God has its own Patreon. If you want to subscribe, just want you to know.
We all have our tithing systems in our religions. So
that's correct.
Yes, but God does not take American Express, only Visa and MasterCard.
However, various institutions will, but yeah.
Mario Trillo says, Cam, you are good. You are too good of a person to laugh at the firing. I, on the other hand, have a cold black heart and will. LOL, keep up the good work, sir. There you go.
I think Kamran's approach is the right approach.
Yeah. But look, these are human beings and they are on their own journey. My sister is very progressive and probably shares the values of these people that are being fired. Do I want her to be fired? No, she's got kids, to feed. I love her. She has her own journey of understanding the world and opinions, and everyone has a right to their opinions. It's not fun. I understand why people would take pleasure in other people's downfall. I've been fired. I've had to face the crisis of it. I faced am I going to lose my home? Am I going to lose, my ability to take care of my loved ones? It's never fun, and I don't wish that on anyone. You always wish them to land on their feet in a place where they are valued and they can be themselves. Probably isn't in this institution to let them go.
There you go.
I'm thankful that 90% of my life I've been self-employed, and I couldn't fire myself or I get no work. There'd be nobody around.
I'm the worst employee I've ever had. Hassan Khan says, Cameron, our own people, Pakistani Muslims, don't help us. They think filmmakers are below them.
You are correct. I mean, yes, that's been my entire experience. I mean, not just Pakistan, the entire Muslim community has this pathology, which is on one level, we're always upset at how poorly we are portrayed, always the villainous terrorist who's beating his wife in a movie, whatever. And yet we're never involved in this industry because we're so busy, because unfortunately where we are in our cultural moment as a community, I'm not generalizing about 2 billion people, but yes, where we are in a cultural moment is a period of lack of confidence and a period of a lack of risk-taking. The Islamic community was once the biggest risk takers in the world. That's why they conquered half the world in 20 years, right? And then they resurrected science at a time when the Dark Ages was taking over Europe. This is the community that has all of this, we invented the guitar, we had this artistic culture. The first camera was invented in the 9th century by Ibn Hazm. So photography, and so we've had this incredible artistic culture. And then when our civilization was at its height, we put our focus on the arts because, in my opinion, science follows the arts because the creativity is what gives people the broadened mind to imagine new things and try new experiments. So a civilization that is not focusing on developing its artistic nature is holding back its genius and then just becomes mimicking what exists today rather than creating new things. And so I think absolutely any society needs to be focusing on creativity. I'm sorry. No, I think
we're getting some echo from Culture's End here for some reason.
Oh yeah, but so yes, unfortunately that's true, and that's why I fight this lonely, silly battle out here. So hopefully I'm not that person that you're critiquing, but it is a fair critique.
I don't. That's a good point. It's a critique of governments, not people.
Well, I'm of the view that governments reflect people. Well, it is what we tolerate. And
you know what? I've met Syrians that you get shocked. I mean, and one of the most educated groups of people in the world are they're Iranians.
Absolutely. And some of the greatest films right now today are of Iran. Yeah.
And people need to be freed. I started listening to Afghani banjo music when the Taliban were temporarily defeated. I'd never heard any music like this in my life. It'd be great to hear more of that.
Yeah, these are just historical moments. Someone in the chat said, Genghis Khan once destroyed the Islamic Caliphate that was at its height of its scientific advancement, right? And he said, well, that was the end. That wasn't the end. I mean, the Ottomans came back for several hundred years and were a dominant world culture. And the
hassock and then the couch came after that.
Yeah, so we're just going through a period right now. I think the last 2 centuries of decolonization was very traumatic for the Muslim world because it's a culture that was used to being the dominant world culture, and then suddenly Europe got more advanced technology, which was surprising to the Muslims because they'd always been culturally superior to Europe. The Dark Ages were a European thing, it wasn't an Islamic thing, and so they weren't prepared to suddenly have Europeans having new weapons that they didn't, and were able to take their countries that they didn't see coming. And so I think the shock of that has been a cultural shock. And because it's a cultural shock, the self-confidence in the arts, which is about culture, went down. But nonetheless, all these communities are making wonderful art today. There's incredible music coming out of Pakistan, incredible, painting coming out of Pakistan today. So
give us another 1,000 years, we'll sort it out.
Don't worry. Somebody's on top, somebody's on the bottom. The great thing was you're on the bottom, that's your moment to shine again. Right? When you're on the bottom is your moment to resurrect your culture. So it's a good thing.
Yeah. God King Dictator sends in 35 South African rands. Says, Cameron, how much longer until woke extremism ends?
Whoa.
Well, I mean, it's a bigger. I mean, I think it's. I think it is ending. I think today's conversation suggests that many of the people that bring in the quote unquote woke extremists are no longer going to be there, so they won't be recruited. And so it's a process. I know that we've been damaged for the last decade, that we think this is never going to end. But the reality is, the era is ending. The reality is, it's long on its way. There will still be TV shows you're like, I can't believe this family show is doing this. There's still going to be stuff you don't like, right? But guess what? There's always going to be stuff you don't like, right? And so I think the cultural shift inside of Hollywood is in the next decade to be making more commercially viable projects. I think we're at the place where economics will dictate that, and political ideologies that are essentially unpopular with the general audience will fade further and further. I know it's hard to believe based on what we've endured for the last decade, but we are over the hump now.
Well,
we need about 3 or 4 more Top Guns and we'll be there.
Well, there's a couple things. Kamran is obviously correct within the context of Hollywood. I just got notified that Puffin Books has backed off and will continue to also publish the regular Roald Dahl books in parallel to the edited Roald Dahl books.
So extended universe, great.
Yes, the extended universe. So they succumb to the pressure of people saying you guys are idiots. Yeah. Now the one problem is in all this woke stuff is you have to follow the money. There are people in school, professors who are teaching this stuff, making money. And professors, according to Ken Livingston, and he's, bless his heart, he's not with us anymore. Professors only know how to make other professors. They really don't know how to create any useful human beings. So the problem is that they're continuing, and the educational systems have to be changed to curtail it at that level. And if it's not curtailed on the education level, then they're going to churn out more, individuals who will then be looking for work, and that usually is in HR. And if those jobs disappear, that will be key, and that seems to be happening, as we documented at the beginning of this show.
Well, and there, like I said, we could go on that stuff forever. But we have another subject here that I'm actually glad was brought up because we haven't got a chance to talk to Cameron. Since we learned a little bit more information about this, Mecha J brings it up here. Cameron, Disney's going ahead with a third Tron movie. You worked on the animated series Tron Uprising. I wanted to hear your thoughts on that news. Of course, what Mecha J is talking about here is the Jared Leto-led Tron project.
I thought that was canceled.
No, last I heard it's still. Go ahead, Cameron.
No, I mean it's been resurrected. That's what I've heard, right? That my understanding is they're moving forward with it, and I've worked on the Tron animated series, and hopefully I added something to the mythology. So my only hope is that some of the mythology that I helped create in Tron Uprising, which you can all see on Disney Plus still, it's actually been resurrected on Disney Plus. People are watching it again. Will come into this new movie. I think that if they handle Tron better than they handled it in the past, I think this could be a new franchise for them. I was there when there was for the second movie, which was a decent movie, and I was there for a solid animated show. I just experienced all the Disney internal corporate politics, right? I experienced all Disney internal corporate politics that made that producing a good movie and a good new Tron franchise very, 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 very difficult. And that's why I was let go from the show, is I confronted those politics. So if they can fix that issue, and Disney obviously has all kinds of other new politics a decade later, then they'll make a good show. I'm glad they're starting over. I think it's a good franchise that's worth exploring. And they are essentially starting over. I think they're moving on from Tron 2. I don't think they're going back to those characters. I think they're just going to continue the mythology. So.
This from what we gathered from the recent report we had reported on Midnight's Edge After Dark, I think the basics is they're using some of the old script that was there for some basis, but this is going to be completely reworked by Leto's people, I'd imagine. And he's going to probably do it more in his image. And I have no idea where they're going with it, but the original idea, I think script you had brought it to our attention, was that the third movie was supposed to be more Earth-based, basically, so they could save on some of the budget. Wasn't that the case?
The script that I read was the Korra character in the real world and some of the people wanting to get her for experimentation. I remember that. I had it on my old computer, and I thought I transferred it over to my new one prior to the one I'm on now, and I didn't. So I went back looking into the old archives trying to find it, but sadly I just can't find it again. Dang. But yeah, it was basically about Sam and Cora, and it was a chase movie. It was a chase movie where they're just kind of running away, and it had very little to do with the actual grid itself. It was her, a fish out of water in our world.
I just found Tron Uprising on Disney. I'm going to go watch it.
It's actually a good show. At least the first half is a good show before they fired me. Then it's
then I'm going to stop.
Have you
watching.
seen the second film? Have you seen the second film, Paul?
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good film.
Okay. Yeah. So you won't be lost. I just want to make sure you saw the second film.
It's a prequel to the second film. It's just how the world of Clue was created, right? That led to the second. It's the uprising before when of what happened. So yeah.
Before Flynn is trapped, right? If I remember correctly.
Yes, correct. And Bruce Boxleitner is very active in our show as Tron, which he wasn't in the second movie, right? So whatever. So my friends, I want to thank you.
We got one more for you here.
Okay.
Cameron, why not to Ben McKenzie, and I think he means chat to Ben McKenzie, and get a documentary on the rise and collapse of crypto going and why it's all a scam? That's his expertise.
Why not chat to Ben McKenzie? Are you asking why I'm not doing that? Because
I think he's suggesting get a hold of Ben McKenzie on this because and see if maybe there's a documentary in this whole FTX scandal.
Sure.
I
don't really know Ben McKenzie, and again, I will say Zero Hedge, which is a major alternative investment digest the people on Wall Street read, did report on my theory. They did an entire analysis saying that this looks plausible, and the very fact that Zero Hedge reported it and named me and actually put Midnight Ted's videos linked into the article is significant. So it's out there, and I think, again, since it's all speculation, I don't know what I can provide except to show people what I think are the pieces that they need to investigate themselves. And so, yeah, if anyone knows Ben McKenzie, drop me a message to my Patreon, and I'll at least send them the Zero Edge article, which goes through step by step what my theory is, and then they can investigate. That's all it is. It's just a theory, and we'll see. So on
two more real quick. Destiny Captain wants to know. I believe he means Picard season 3 here.
I've not
seen that at all.
I've not watched Picard. I've heard interesting things. A lot of people seem to like Picard season 3. I know there's many that don't, but it seems to be a more divided opinion than I've heard in the first 2 seasons. So that's interesting to me. Okay.
Yeah, and then Elf wants to know how much money it will take for Disney to stop supporting the woke, but to be fair, that will never happen. So it's kind of a rhetorical question.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Again, I've stated my opinion that is happening right now, and we're seeing the whole point of today's first part of the video today was discussing that they're letting go of the recruiters of the woke. It speaks for itself. So I'm not sure I agree with your conclusion there. It's already happening right now. So on that note, my friends, thank you for your patience. Thank you for letting me pause things.
Yeah, stick around, guys. Cameron has to leave, but we are not going anywhere. So thank you so much, Cameron, for your time. And Mr. Tickletrent says, "Run, Cameron, run, be free."
God bless everyone, and
Hi, Cameron.
And hopefully we'll come back on once people are being taken out and frog marched by the FBI. Once my theory proves to be true, we'll have a celebratory conversation. What is this last thing from you? I asked on your Patreon about woke and its unlimited resources supporters like BlackRock, going Disney 3. Yeah, it was no surprise. Yeah, so and
thank you, OC Gigan.
Thank you, OC Gigan. The last thing I'll say is, again, I cannot confirm this. Our friend Doomcock is claiming on his video, you should go watch his video, is claiming that something which I had not speculated, but makes sense to me. He's claiming that the part of the removal of Mr. Chapek was that BlackRock was going to cover the hole to try to make it go away. Seems plausible to me because all of that is illegal. All of that is shenanigans, and all of this is, but if you're deep in the hole of illegality, to me, that seems plausible. Again, it's all allegations. Take it up with Doomcock. Those are his sources' claims. So, my friends, God bless all of you. I will talk to you soon. Peace.
Thank you, Cameron. Take care. And with that,
because all of us here are running with the 1%ers.
Always, yeah. I got a gold toilet seat.
There you go.
Sure.
That's what makes you qualified as a 1%er, whether you have a gold toilet seat or not.
That's right. In a bidet. Does this dress make my ass look big? Says, check out Karen Gilliam's YouTube short explaining the elbow gate from Guardians of the Galaxy 3 poster, Mainstream Luna. Can anyone say Royal Jelly? She is adorable. I've seen this. So yes, according to her, that pose, that is supposedly her in that poster. And she picked that pose and she said it didn't look as cool as she was hoping. So evidently it was her.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who cares?
I know. Yeah, I'm kind of past this. That's why I'm not going to look for the video. Does this dress make my ass look big? But I have seen it. It's on Twitter and other places. And as you said here,
The movie will be the pudding of its proof. What? Huh?
Proof will be in the pudding.
Yeah, what he
Proof
said.
will be in the movie pudding.
It'll be good or bad.
Stop putting your pudding in my movie. Then we got Nathan Housley, who just sends in $1. Doesn't say anything, but has a nice little icon of a puppy. We love puppies here. Teague says, is Coke Bear 1,000 ways to die skit? That's a good question for culture. Is it a thousand ways
A
to
long
die skit?
1,000 ways to die skit.
No, it's more akin to Snakes on a Plane or whatever. I mean, you're gonna root for various characters throughout. Some of those characters will end. I mean, there's some really interesting subplots, you know, and everything kind of neatly wraps up at the end. It's kind of in a weird way like a romantic comedy at some
Well,
point.
the cocaine bear is the distraction of the actual movie itself. It sounds to me.
No, actually, the cocaine bear is actually a feature player in the film.
No, not a feature player. There's another story going on, and a cocaine bear is occupying most of that because that's usually what it is. With Snakes on a Plane, it wasn't about the snakes on a plane. No. It was about the fact that they're getting a state's witness to to mainland USA to testify. That's the story. But Snakes on a Plane, that's the conflict. Cocaine bear is the conflict, and that's cool.
You've seen it, Culture?
Oh yeah.
Okay, don't spoil it.
I won't.
Yeah, he was telling us earlier it was pretty good. I think that was when you had stepped away.
And it's not a great film. It's not an epic. It's
no, but it is what exactly the title says it's going to be. It's a bear on fucking cocaine for 90 minutes.
So for my wife's sake, does the bear survive at the very end?
Of course not.
Okay, good.
What? How does that? That's not the true story.
The true story, the bear only lived for 15 fucking minutes.
That's what I'm saying.
So this is not an autobiography or a whatever.
I'm disappointed already, Paul.
It's good.
There's no way my
this
wife
is more akin to like the movies from the 70s. That's why I'm hoping it does well. This is that era of we had Grizzly, we had Alligator, you had all the Jaws ripoffs.
No. This is more like the Disney Love.
There's actually things hidden that I will not reveal here that are even more.
My point is I want those kind of movies to come back. I like that kind of shit. And that's what I'm saying. This is a throwback to that, plus add in the cocaine. That's what I was getting at.
You're gonna love it. And script hit exactly the mark that the film is about. You know, it's just like. But there are multiple little threads here that go through things, and there are goofy moments too. That are like, why the hell was that in there? It's a very strange stuff, but it's good stuff. So,
yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, but I just love all the crazy killer animal movies. Those are awesome. But no, I hope it's not this, but it sounds like it's doing well, and I hope it does even better than it's shaping up as so far. SP has become a member. Thank you so much, SP. Douglas A. Burton says, changing an artist's books is a modern form of iconoclasm. Future artists are going to have to add clauses to their contracts. Yeah. That's scary about this whole thing. And I get it. They did buckle a little bit. And I don't know if they necessarily buckled, Paul. I think that was probably always the plan. But frankly, it scares me when they start doing that kind of shit. But
there is something called moral rights. It's different in different jurisdictions. Moral rights are always retained by the person who created the product, whether they sold it or not. It has to be specifically written into the contract that they give up their moral rights. So if it's not specific in the contract, then the creative individual retains the moral rights, and they're not able to screw with whatever it is that they've come up with. very few people know about moral rights in as far as IP is concerned.
Yeah, that's something I'm not too up to speed with. Joe Pat 87 says Megan just landed on Peacock. Oh, cool. And lo and behold, you're indeed offering an unrated cut. Well, I don't even have to buy it. They even show the neighbor getting her face burnt off. Spoilers. God. Well, I guess I know what I'm watching at some point here. You know what's funny is I almost did like reviews. Like I have this movie called Dolly Deers. So when Megan came out, I was going to review that. I was going to review Grizzly when this movie came out, but I just never got to it. Maybe I still should. But anyway, these were for you, Paul. Actually, these came in earlier. Dark King says, reason why some reviewers will hate films that have a favorable take on communism is that the ideology killed about 100 million in the 20th century. In that regard, saying, oh, communism wasn't so bad, it has its good points, is on the same level as saying fascism wasn't all bad, you know.
Well, is he accusing me of saying that?
I have no idea. I just know this was meant for you, so I went back and grabbed it.
I just mentioned that. I just mentioned the fact that episode 6 of The Last of Us had a very overt mention of communism, and then I made a joke about it. I thought it was a funny joke. All it took was the end of the world, a plague that turned people into zombies, and tiny sporadic, not sporadic, but tiny communities spread all over the planet to make communism work. So I thought that was a funny joke.
It is a funny joke.
I was
saying you lose everything of value in order to make this terrible system work.
Correct. That was the joke. Few people took it seriously.
Few people must have. So I don't know if that's the case, Dark King, but there you go. I did go back and make sure that Paul got to see that.
Now that I've straightened that out.
Yes. Jeff Robinson is here and says, would rather watch Cocaine Bear over any Oscar Best Picture nominee. Just wait, this might get a Best Picture nominee next year. I'm just kidding. FTX Conspiracy Gang represent. You know, I joke about that, but since it was directed by a woman, you never know. You never know now. But then again, you were just telling me, Paul, that she's still out there bitching that enough women.
Yeah, Boundin by Comics mentioned that she's out there complaining.
She had complained before about similar stuff, so I don't know.
That was related to the Charlie's Angels film that.
But this is related to Cocaine Bear, where
really?
Yeah, something along the lines of women shouldn't be directing men in action movies. Right? I just quickly went through it. I wasn't interested in reading it. Poor Liz, shut up.
Yeah, she would be better
been
off
directing a lot of action movies in the last 5 years.
Yeah, shut up. If this is true, just like enjoy it.
Catherine Bigelow and a few other people would have a thing or two to say with her. But
Patty Jenkins, technically.
Yeah, Catherine Bigelow.
I mean, there were action scenes that Penny Marshall directed way back when.
She was great. It was tougher for women directors. Penny Marshall had a very difficult time breaking into the business. She was a pioneer.
She did amazing.
Levenstahl really made it big fast. For all you Nazi aficionados. I am not doubting the difficulty women have and continue to have in trying to break into directing.
Hopefully this does well and it'll bust down some doors. So there you go. Mecha J, and that's how you really do it. All this bullshit of like, you know, we need to represent DEI, this bullshit. No, you do stuff like that. You have somebody go out and you make a movie like that actually gets attention. So
I want first crack at this one.
Go ahead, go and read.
All right. Mecha J for $5 says, what do you guys think of Lightyear writer Pete Docter's recent statement on why the movie bombed, saying they asked too much of the audience? No, what Pete Docter actually said was, you are freaking stupid. The audience is dumb. We hate them. We have to boil this down so something that a third grader can understand, which is what we're supposed to be doing in animation anyway. We were trying to tell this overly woke political story that none of you were smart enough to get.
We had way too much science fiction in it. He's quoted as saying, the bottom line is the opening credit sequence, and I'll paraphrase, this was the movie in 1984 that got Andy excited about Buzz Lightyear.
Exactly.
It was not. No freaking way. Even from an animation style perspective, would that have been the movie?
No, we
from
wrote
that
it 10
era?
times better.
And rewind
I'm even
rewind
talking
back.
about that, Tom.
No, I know, but we were like, it needed to be more appropriate to the time period. No, I remember.
Yeah, and rewind back to the fact that Star Command itself and the toys that Andy was playing with, including Woody, was a pull string toy. You know what? Woody's voice was the actor that played Woody in the pull string toy. It should have been the same thing with that, you know. And you can point to the fact that it changed voice actor, but it changed the character, and it changed the thing that a boy that age would be excited about. You know, is a story that wouldn't have existed back at the time that this would have been a thing. So it's disgusting. Yeah. Pete Docter, I've lost so much respect for. Yeah.
Well, here's the worst part for it. It steals a plot point from the Lost in Space movie in '98.
Yeah. Yeah, and it casts aside the animated Star Command thing that was out there in the world. I mean, there's all kinds of problems with
the level of lack of hipness that's at Pixar now is what's shocking. So for me, the coolest thing would have been, because everything is derived from previous ideas. George Lucas created Star Wars from the Buck Rogers serials, right?
Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, Hidden Fortress,
right?
So big amalgam of all those things, yeah.
And if I was Pixar, I wouldn't even have done the Star Command Lightyear. I would have taken the 1950s movies that Star Command was influenced by and have these terrible Flash Gordon,
basically like Buck Rogers,
you know, terrible aliens and horrible spaceships with flames coming out and going up. It's like flying. That would have been super hip. And there was nothing hip about Lightyear. Nothing. I'm not even talking about the turkey baster stuff. I'm just talking about the fact that there was nothing groovy about it. And they just didn't get it. And Doctor has been there at Pixar from the beginning, and I am shocked at his remarks lately. Clearly the man has, you know, although he was involved in many of you know, some
but under whose guidance and how much of his stuff got stripped down to the
we don't know.
To the walls when Lasseter was leading things. I would imagine Lasseter was notorious for tearing things back to the studs. You know, so it's
clearly Pete's a fraud.
No.
Oh, Lasseter would have never let Lightyear happen under his watch. First of all, let's be clear.
Yeah.
No, he already had an established background as far as that goes, and I think we would have gotten something more akin to what Paul's talking about had Lasseter been around, if they would even have went that route. Like, because we've already seen it, right? In Toy Story 2, we get Woody's background. They put more thought and care into making Woody more time appropriate. And you see, and those are some of my favorite segments of that film. And I still say Toy Story 2 is probably the best of the trilogy, where we get to see, you know, the old Woody's Roundup stuff, where it looks like it's a, you know, an old Howdy Doody episode, basically, kind of situation, or the old, like you were just saying, Paul, where you see the strings, you know, it's all hokey looking like it would have been back then.
Nostalgia.
All that kind of business. Exactly. And they didn't do that for Lightyear. And I think that was a huge missed opportunity, because Lightyear would have come in that late 80s, early 90s era.
So it would have been the last Starfighter.
It would have been in that, exactly. It would have been like that, the last Starfighter kind of stuff. Like I said, a canon movie, basically. Would have been hilarious to see, you know, a low budget, you know, sci-fi-ish kind of.
The creators of Lightyear said that Andy would have seen the movie
basically Ice Pirates
on VHS. It was actually produced before he was old enough to really understand what it was, and he would have seen it on VHS, which would have made it even less like the Lightyear that they created.
Right.
You know, I would have been happy if it was a fake story, a fictionalized story of a Buzz Aldrin and they made it real, and that created Star Command and Buzz Lightyear. There's
Well, it should have just been a
many
Flash
different ways
Gordon
they
kind
could
of
have made
ripoff,
this.
really.
But I'm not even talking about Flash Gordon. I'm talking
No,
about
no, no,
real
no.
space. I'm talking about real science, real NASA.
I was going to get to that, but what it's saying is like, you're right. It should have been this idea that you had Buzz Lightyear, because this is the kind of movie they would have made in the 80s.
Well, I'm not saying
he's from
should
our
have.
time,
I'm just
of our
saying that
Earth.
there's a lot
and
of
yeah,
options that they could have had, and they picked none of them.
No,
Yeah, they
you're
weren't
right.
even in the same realm.
No. Anyway, yeah, we could go on about that forever, but we got some more super chats to get through and a couple of other
Clearly,
things to
it
cover.
was important to us to talk about.
Yeah. G-Dog sends us a thumbs up. Please hit the thumbs up if you haven't already. We got General Sod here who says, thoughts on Carrie Gillian's apology for the Guardians 3 poster. Well, we did touch on that a little bit. I just find the whole thing strange.
Next. Move on. Next.
Mihan has been a member for 3 months. Thank you so much. John Gibson says layoffs always hit people who are non-revenue generating positions. HR is always the first to be gutted. Well, and again,
marketing. Marketing is always
marketing
first to
is
be gutted.
yeah, and look, part of this is, you know, I understand where Cameron's come from. I'm not laughing anybody getting fired either, but I guess it's your fault for picking a stupid fucking job like that, where you know it's probably not going to last.
It wasn't their fault that
it's built on stupidity.
Applied for a job that was posted. That's not their fault.
That's not what I'm talking about, though, Paul. I'm talking about the idea of this is like the idiots who go and get fucking art degrees in fucking college and then wonder why they can't get a job.
Hey. I got an art and degree in radio, television arts.
This is the new art degree. That's what I'm talking about. Well, yeah, you got a specific one.
No,
but like, yeah, like this is that's all it is, right? It's the I don't know what I want to be, Daddy. Oh, well, why don't you get into HR and DEI and all that shit? Basically, sorry, that's what I'm trying to say. But so I do feel bad for people losing their jobs, but just not so much these positions. STR Red Wolf says firings.
Can I ask a question? Does anybody ever grow up being like, oh, I want to be a DEI or a DIE officer? No. And I mean, it's ultimately, and this is how I've thought about this for a long time. Remember when they made up these degree programs for athletes in college? Wasn't one of them gender studies?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Probably.
So I'm looking at this stuff and I'm like, these are this
Syracuse too.
Yeah, I mean, you created these ridiculous humanities degree programs that have no benefit to anyone at all, and you hand out these slips of paper, and these corporations bring in these make work gigs. That's what they are.
I think where the energy is coming from is that they're considered activist jobs, that they're going to go out and change the world. If you argue with these people on Twitter, they absolutely believe that they're going to be the caretakers of a new humanity,
which almost guarantees you're not going to be, because I'll tell you what,
I agree, but I'm just telling
anybody
you,
who has changed the world had no ambition to do so. Yeah. I know.
That's all they're doing. That's what
I was agreeing with you, and I'm just saying, like, that's the thing is, I guarantee you, most people who have changed the world had no ambition to do so. That was completely on accident.
But worse yet, on college entry and exits, when you talk to people who go into like journalism paths, they are identifying themselves as activists now.
Yep.
You know, and when they apply for jobs, I mean, so you have these radicalized folks that, you know, really don't serve a lot of purpose in corporations, and you're watching the destruction of the media under the activist, the activist group of humans. This is a real problem we've got going forward.
Yeah, and this is what I was talking about. ActionCom brings up here. Rosa Parks just wanted a damn bus ride. Exactly. Like, not everybody's out to change the world, but sometimes something you do does matter.
Well, the nanny state is something that is a popular idea amongst many individuals.
Yeah. And then STR Red Wolf says firings are broadcast industry wide. NPR just announced 10% headcount reduction after trying other mitigation steps. It's interesting to hear where firings are hitting. Well, again, like we were just saying, they're going to hit hardest in the places where they're the least needed, like in the HR departments and marketing and other areas that are just unnecessary when you need to trim the fat, basically. So, which is sad for some people, but is just a hard truth. Taker 610 says worthless non-revenue driving jobs cut first. Haha. Well, that's kind of how it works. And then we got David Deacon Little, who's been David Deacon Little, who's been a member for 8 months. Thank you so much. Then he sends a shout out to Midnight's Edge. Best easy listening while grocery shopping, running errands. Thank you guys for the content and commentary. Well, you're welcome, and hopefully we don't make you laugh too loud in the grocery store. David then writes in another $5 super chat and says, when you use racism as an excuse for poor performance like a content creator, coin the term lazy booking. LOL, all excuses and all expectation. Oh. That's a new one. And then we got Anthony who says, greetings from Denmark. Well, greetings. Again, a great panel and great insights and info. Hail to all. Well, thank you, Anthony. And hopefully everybody's doing well in Denmark. Then we got Raz Grizz Reborn, who says, Brie Larson did commercials for Nintendo Switch. The reason was so bad, Nintendo pulled all the commercials down from the official YouTube channel. Only re-uploads and some articles exist. I didn't know they pulled down the actual video.
I love Nintendo.
I like Brie Larson. One of the few people who like her.
Is it the feet?
What?
I don't know. I liked her in. She was one of the girlfriends in that comic book.
Oh, the Scott Pilgrim movie.
Yeah, Scott Pilgrim.
That was 30 years ago.
I thought she was great in it. I liked her. And then she was in that movie House or whatever, The Room or something.
Room,
Oh, that was. Ugh.
She's got good act. She's a good actress.
Yeah, but that kid acted circles.
But did you see what was that called? Script Botswani Blues or something?
Oh yeah. No, I did not see that.
Cultural appropriation blues
but that
or
had
whatever.
Scott Bakula in it. Playing her dad.
Wow, poor Scott Bakula. I love the guy, but dang, doesn't sound good.
I think she's cute. I don't mind her.
Well,
she has no bum, but she's cute.
You're allowed to be wrong, but anyway. Brado Jacko says wokeness won't end until ESG is banned. I don't know about that, but that's one thing.
Not so much banned, but continue to be mocked, because when you ban an idea, it can go into darkness. But when you mock an idea, you expose its weaknesses and vulnerabilities, and then nobody can hide from it. So
that's very true.
We need to keep mocking.
Mock. We are
will continue until your ideas improve.
In fact, I've got a sketch coming out. I'm shooting it hopefully today, mocking it further.
Speaking of mocking, we got a South Park story I'm going to try to get to here shortly. Kaliki Oki, if I'm saying that right, says, what is the rumor of Warner Brothers Discovery being sold? Why take the time and effort to build a company just to sell it off? Shouldn't you find a successor? Well, I'll tell you why. It's no different than flipping a house, right? Like in this case, I can see it, and I know culture doesn't buy this, but there's certain things that are leading me to believe that they're getting closer to this idea than I did before, because I was also in the camp of that. But it sounds like culture doesn't buy it. What about you, Paul? Is this something?
Well, now with the announcement that they're moving ahead with the Wizarding World, the Harry Potter stuff, their canons, if they can execute, holy smokes, the weaponry that they are loading up with is scary. I mean, holy smokes.
We're going to get into that just briefly here in a bit.
I don't see why they would sell off now when they're, arming themselves.
Well, that's kind of how it works, right? And I compared it to basically when Lucasfilm was sold to Disney. Iger went to George. I know what you're saying, culture, and I understand.
But that's a very different context. Lucas didn't want to give it to his kids. His kids weren't interested in it. He had no successor.
But
he needed
that's not what I'm talking about.
Somewhere to sell to Lucasfilm, but he wanted to get the most money for it.
That's what I was getting to and this is the part I'm talking about. And this is where I'm saying, like, because people are like, well, why would you get James Gunn? Why would you do all this stuff? Well, this is why, is because to make the company worth more than what it was when you bought it. Because George was told that he was only going to get $2 billion basically as is for Lucasfilm. So Iger said, get some shit going in pre-production. If you can do that, then I can talk the board into giving you more. And that's how they got the 4.05 is George started to get in pre-production on the sequels.
But you know what?
Got Mark Hamill signed up, got Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford signed up.
What's different is that was just a bit of smoke and mirrors. They've announced Lord of the Rings, they've announced Harry
I was
Potter.
getting to that, yes, but
this is way bigger than
Yes.
Lucasfilm. Way bigger.
Yeah,
I get
look,
that. I was just using that as an example
I
of
know,
why
I
you
get
would
it.
do
I'm
that.
just saying, with these new announcements, all bets are off.
The other
and
part
I'm
too
sure
is
Amazon is pissed off at the announcement. This is great.
yes, they are.
Oh yeah, they must be humiliated by this. But the other thing is that who is going to buy Warner Brothers? And you can't look at other studios because they'll never pass the antitrust laws.
You're right.
If they buy Warner Brothers, that diminishes the variety of actual competition. So the only companies that could would be service providers or like Elon Musk or someone outside. And most of them have no interest in acquiring Warner Brothers. It is far more lucrative at this point for Warner Brothers to stay as they are, put out these films, make the money, and just reap the benefits for themselves and be essentially their own bosses as they have been for the last 9 months ish, and run it that way. Again, someone will buy Warner Brothers eventually down the road. It's just not going to be happening in a house flip type of manner the way we would expect, and it's probably going to be someone who we might not even know who buys it.
Exactly, and there's a lot of people looking at it like, well, the expiration for them to be allowed to be sold off is coming to a close here in a year or so, right? They're looking at, okay, now this company can be flipped out again. It's not gonna, and the reason that they're keeping Discovery Plus separate from Warner Brothers is because they want to have comparables to show a yardstick to Wall Street that this side of the equation is improving. They already did. They showed about, what was it, 7 billion, Tom, or something, and they earned back. They actually had more cost savings than they planned to realize. They had a $4 billion cost savings instead of 3.5 billion on the one side of the balance sheet. So when I look at it, I'm looking at it going, okay, they just demonstrated with the video game that they're releasing, Hogwarts Legacy, a massive profit yield out of that game, and it's still going. I mean, we're only 2 weeks in. This thing's made several $100 million at this point.
And it's a great metric to say that more Harry Potter content will be profitable if they put the time and effort in it like they did with the game. Even though I perused the game and it looks kind of like a paint by numbers version of other games of the site. Regardless, the fan interest, the brand of Harry Potter is still strong.
Yeah. It's a fun game script. I've been enjoying it.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not fun. I'm just saying
you're right. There's nothing extraordinary.
Yeah, there's no endlessly grinding through, knocking boulders down and
exactly
and
where's
doing basically nothing for hours on end. I don't know, collecting stuff. That's pretty exciting.
I'm so far I haven't gotten to a point in the game where I have to go mine minerals for like 27 hours so I can
I don't know that mining minerals for 27 hours. That would be an exciting game if someone would come up with that.
No thanks. But no, I look at that, and then of course, Paul already mentioned that they're moving forward with a whole slate of Lord of the Rings. You already are moving forward with a slate of entertainment based on this world of Harry Potter. You have revenue coming in from the licensing agreement with Universal for the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, which they just expanded upon with they're building out the Ministry of Magic in Florida, along with the new parts of the Epic Universe Park that they're going to open up here next year in 2024. I mean, I have seen nothing but upside now for Warner, and here's the other thing: investors are seeing the same thing.
And Warner's. And Warner's is surrounding themselves with partners that will take on their own debt and make the money. Yep. And Disney has brought everything in. They've got a completely single vertical
walled garden.
Yeah, walled garden. They're their own vertical. They're making nothing from Disney Plus. It's the dumbest company in the world right now, except for the parks.
Yeah, it was stupid. And again, it's one of the reasons why when they are restructuring, they will have no comparables for at least a year. So you won't be able to compare whether or not they're succeeding or failing, which is not what Warner Brothers wants to do. Warner Brothers wants to show success is the way they're structured now, which is why you're not seeing the two streaming services merge. It's why, why these things are broken out the way they are. Disney, on the other hand, they want to eliminate the opportunity to compare year over year until a year from now when it comes to ESPN's performance, theatrical performance, park revenue. I mean, and the only thing that you're going to have year to year comparisons for is parks, products, and experiences. Essentially, that's the only way that you'll be able to measure back and forth. Even their structure, their sloppy structure when it comes to their streaming services over at Disney is going to be hard to measure for another year because, and again, it's intentionally being done. Every time you restructure a company, it's to change the metrics and how it was judged.
I'm just wondering whether Disney tried to follow Apple because Apple runs that way.
Yeah.
But they've got and Disney did at one point have
who was a board member over at Apple while they were a board member at Disney.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah. Well, guess who was recently a board member up until they launched a Disney Plus?
His wife.
No, Iger.
Iger. Oh,
yeah. Iger was on the board when they were putting Apple Plus and Disney Plus together. Yeah, it's very weird, right? Where you see that they were so close; those two entities were so close, and then we got into the streaming thing. But yeah,
well, then
crazy,
he'd have to leave the board.
He did. He had to bail. Yeah, because they were going to have direct competing products. It's insane. Yeah, but he helped build up both. He helped make decisions at both companies to build up both products. Yeah, that's why they have such creative names like Apple Plus and Disney Plus.
Paramount Plus.
Paramount Plus. Yeah. At least they didn't call it HBO Plus. I'd been like, oh, come on.
HBO Max.
Well, on that note, we've got some
N Plus products.
Anyway,
we've got Tom, some news when it comes to HBO Max and Paramount. But first, let's discuss some of the things that Paul brought up. Last night, there was the earnings call, and we had learned that the Harry Potter game, speaking of, is doing very well. In the week that it is since its launch, it has made over $850 million in sales. Like basically, if you put this up against a movie, it had a budget of $140 million for the game. So that is a huge success for them. And this is basically just what they need to launch into a Harry Potter expanded universe. We don't know the extent of how that's going to roll out yet, but they did hint that this will be an ever-expanding universe, and I can only assume that it's between movies and television, whatever, but go ahead, Culture, because we don't have any specifics yet, but yeah.
Oh, no. I just was waiting until you were done because I wanted to add to something because you just said this magical number thing, right? This $800 million. And one of the chatters in the 6 Minute Daily this morning, Haitian Faludo, noted that if you do some movie math on that budget, Tom, that $140 million, and what they've made so far on this game, they have made as much money with this video game as the profitability for all of the Fantastic Beast films.
Yeah, and that was something that it seemed like Zaz was kind of distancing themselves from, and I can honestly see moving forward that the Hogwarts legacy is going to probably shape more things going forward.
I mean, different entertainment products have a different metric. A hit video game is going to be way more profitable than a movie.
Obviously.
I remember reading a story where Steven Spielberg was trying to convince the guy who did Cats and Phantom of the Opera,
Andrew Lloyd Webber,
he was asking why aren't you making movies of this stuff? And then on a napkin, Andrew Lloyd Webber showed the math of how much he makes on the live productions of these shows, and it just dwarfs any movie.
Well, it helps that a video game costs 3 times as much as a movie does on video. That helps, and then it has a much more longer lifespan than a movie does.
Oh yeah, I mean,
there's all kinds of other added avenues.
For years and years and years, the sunk costs are all in. Once you're done, you're just paying cheap actors. And then and Spielberg went, oh my God, he really had no idea just how much a successful Broadway style show makes. We don't even talk about that. on this
A
channel. Not that it's
successful one does very well. Yeah. Well, that's a
Unless you're in
little
Canada,
bit out
Ed
of our
Mirvish
domain, but
steals a lot of money. Mirvish Theaters takes a lot from productions up here.
Well,
But yes, in Broadway.
sounds like
and
they need a
West End
Taylor
England.
Swift incident for
and
them.
and the producers and Mel Brooks took a crap ton of money from
The stage play, yeah.
the stage play. I mean, it was just a ridiculous percentage, but that was the cost of doing business. They had to close it down because while it was successful, his cut was so large it made it not profitable.
Well, and video games are the same way. They have a longer lifespan. You have
Yep.
opportunities for downloadable content. There's all kinds of other things. And again, same thing with a movie. You're spending as much on a game as you would to go see the movie in a theater and on video and then some. So right there, the company's getting that much more out of you. And as we know, the money's always in the software, not the hardware. That's why they do this. But
people are still playing Skyrim and buying it.
exactly, like they have a lifespan much beyond
Oh,
their
yeah.
initial launch. I mean, GTA 5 is still
Oh, yeah.
relevant, still does stuff all the time. And it'll be a while before we see GTA 6 for that reason, and that there's no incentive in releasing another game for a while.
No, and then my understanding is that they're going to wokeify 6 to the point where I think it'll
Probably.
increase the sales of 5.
It'll be to the point where 4 and 5 were the last good ones. You're not wrong there.
So what, you're
but
only stealing from like straight white men in GTA 6?
pretty much, Lord knows.
knows.
It's hard to say that some of that stuff leaked out. I don't know how accurate it is.
No
but,
Eastern European trying to make it in America.
Nico. But yeah, so we found out about the Harry Potter stuff. He mentioned DC briefly. Mentioned that they're not going to release anything before it's ready. I don't know if that was specifically in regards to anything that we are have coming up here or not, because
And
he
then
has
he
mentioned that
mentioned
in
Lord of the
past.
Rings, and he was ready to jump out of his pants.
I was going to get there because I was going to cover the DC stuff first. Because
Well, that's DC. Well, no, not DC. That's Warner. Sorry, pardon.
Yeah, DC stuff. He didn't really mention anything specifically other than Flash, from my recollection. Did he mention anything else? Script?
Well, he mentioned that they haven't had a standalone Superman movie in a long time, and they're focusing on that. He brought up that everyone is really excited about what was revealed of James Gunn's Chapter 1 of the DC stuff. And then he read a very monotone, flat quote off his statement about how great James Gunn felt the Flash was, which is very funny because everything else he talked about, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, he actually had excitement in his voice, but not for the Flash. So that might be our clue as to what to expect in the coming weeks when this movie debuts.
Maybe he hasn't seen it.
Yeah. He said he had seen it.
Oh, I don't believe
But he
it.
didn't give his opinions. He just gave James Gunn's opinion.
Yeah. But then, so there wasn't too much new on that, although we did learn that there is going to be a huge announcement or a press conference on the 15th of April where they're going to get deeper into some of these things. And one of those things that they mentioned,
going to helm all the Harry Potter stuff. No, Peter is going to helm all the Lord of the Rings stuff. That's
no, actually, he thumped Amazon in the head with his dick last night when he turned around and said,
allegedly,
and probably literally at some point, because I'll tell you what, he's like, we got Lord of the Rings, kids. We got real Lord of the Rings, and we're going to be doing tons of it, basically. We don't have any specifics there either, but then soon after the call, Peter Jackson put out a statement that he has been a part of these discussions with Embracer Group and everything that's going on in the background. And he did not say he is going to be a part of this, but he alluded to the fact that they are in conversations. And I would imagine Warner would want him involved in some capacity. Again, also implicating that this is all going to be tied in with his Lord of the Rings franchise. And I know we'll have probably more on that soon. Six has been doing all kinds of snoop work in the background on the Embracer Group stuff. And that's finally come to a point where I think we're ready to do something with that. And we just got to get Andre kicking on that.
Well, as the producer of Lord of the Rings, he actually has intellectual assets like the way Legolas was portrayed in it that Warner's, I don't think, has access to unless they get permission from him.
I'm not sure on that part, how much of his production company has involvement in it as far as like overall say. I mean, I think Warner can do whatever the hell they want, but I think they just want him involved just for the optics of it and for the fact of the talent.
Oh, it would be huge if he was,
because that's the thing is what Warner has the rights over compared to what Amazon has over, and that's why I say this is a big, mushroom stamp on their head. Yeah. Is basically they have everything from the Silmarillion all the way up through the Return of the King, because I can't say it because I'm from the Midwest. The Silmarillion, that thing.
The salamander. Just say
the salamander. They got everything that matters, basically, is the point. So they can do just about anything they want. They can tell stories within, that happen right in the same time period, right before, right after, whatever they want to do. And Embracer is embracing this, I'm sure, because they want to do video games, comic books, figures, all based on these things. And that's big money for everybody. So there you go.
I thought my bet on Jeff Bezos going into an alley and buying whatever sad remains from a street vendor, what they were actually buying for their Lord of the Rings. I thought was pretty funny. Hello, Governor. Oh yeah, I've got the Lord of the Rings. Sure I do, right here. It's available.
Is that a real Rolex watch next to it?
Sure. Oh yeah. It's a real Rolex watch. It's only $15.
It's a real imitation Rolex.
It's right.
So here's a summary. Thank you, Six, for sending me this summary of what they have over there. They have the video game and board game rights. They have the film rights, the merchandising, theme parks and experiences, stage productions, and matching rights.
Nothing. So they got nothing.
Not a darn thing. So what this all boils back down to is when the Soul Sands company is like, oh, the rights are up for sale. We think we have the rights to everything. And Warner Brothers like, yeah, we have the claim to those licenses yet. And then that's why they are releasing the Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim movie, I believe this summer, right? Isn't it?
War of Rohirrim. Yeah, or Rohirrim.
Rohirrim. Oh, yeah. I didn't know. Hopefully it's good.
Yeah, and it's an animated style, so I think people will enjoy it. And then again, I mean, all you have to do is get your placeholders in place for stuff, and Warner Brothers has already done so. This is going to be, well, amazing. I think Warner Brothers has really taken the wind out of the sails or the balloon or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, they're going to be competing with Amazon head on. And this is where I'm not sure where it falls as far as like what they can do as far as television, because it doesn't say that here, but I know there is some television rights involved in there too. And that's where the loophole came in with the Tolkien estate rights for the Amazon series to begin with. So again, I reiterate, I'm sure we have an ultimate video coming on that, hopefully very soon, on that whole subject. I'm sure Andre is going to break into it deeply, but I believe it is under the film category. Thank you, Six. That's what I thought. So with that, speaking of lawsuits, because that's one thing, the Embracer Group was in and out of court all the time. Culture, you have to leave us.
Unfortunately,
but I want to grab your opinion on this real quick on your way out the door. Speaking of lawsuits, that was a real horrible segue there, but looks like Warner Brothers and Paramount are going to court over South Park. This is actually a pretty quick story because this is just early happenings. According to HBO, they are suing Paramount for blatantly intending to prop up Paramount Plus and breaching the contract by steering South Park specials and other content to its Paramount Plus platform, and alleging multiple and flagrant duplications, contortions of fact, and breaches of contract. Warner brings this lawsuit to vindicate its rights to recover hundreds of millions of dollars in damages incurred as a result of defendants' misconduct.
Why was South Park supposed to be on HBO?
Yes. Okay.
I had no idea.
So, Culture, I don't know if I want to hear your take on this, but if you want to, if you understand the ins and outs of this real quick, if you want to explain it, if not, I can.
I can't explain it at all. All I can say is, wow. If this actually happens. But according to the story, doesn't it go on further to say that this was something that had been an ongoing issue between the two that they'd been trying to resolve behind the scenes?
Probably, because here's the whole document here.
there's
It's
the-
25 pages of stuff.
Okay, I'll have to head over to Scribd.
I can only guess. Yeah, I was going to say, I can only guess at some of this, and I'm going to speculate on some of this because I knew what this was stemming from, basically.
I would blame Canada.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't have Paul for too much longer, too. So, Culture, if you have to leave now, go ahead. Otherwise, we're going to stick around for a few more minutes.
Love you guys. I got my show in an hour. Paul, keep making me laugh, dude. Love you.
I will try.
Because we have some super chats, I think, for Paul. So
Script, stay brilliant, and Tom, I need a hug. All right,
I'll give you one. I'll email you one here soon.
Okay, all right. See you later. Bye.
All right.
Don't touch me with your sweaty bald head.
That's right. So basically, what this stems from, Paul, to answer your question, is Warner Brothers and Paramount both had separate comedy channels back in the day. I can't remember which one who owned what, but they ended up combining and just making Comedy Central the main channel. It was like the Comedy Network and Comedy Central, and then they just combined. So
Comedy Central was Warner's.
Okay, so there you go. So under that, they've been co-owned or whatever ever since then. And so they co-owned basically South Park along with Matt and Trey. And there was a big deal a while back with certain rights issues that HBO signed over their movie rights for a sequel to get a piece of the Nolan Interstellar film. And then they also bounced back the rights of Friday the 13th Jason for 5 years that Paramount did absolutely nothing with. Anyway, then in the process of all this, they had the exclusive streaming rights after Hulu's deal ended. That's the thing. So they have all the seasons on HBO Max. What Paramount has been doing, and they kind of make fun of this in their Streaming Wars specials, Paramount has been having the boys do specials so they can have them on Paramount Plus. So they've been treating them as movies, in quotations, and manipulating that clause. And so I think what Warner Brothers is doing is basically calling shenanigans on them, because not only that, it's basically because the way the boys are doing it is those stories are in between each of these seasons. So I'm sure they're getting plenty of complaints from people who are trying to watch all the South Park stuff,
right?
And they can't access it all because they have to go to Paramount Plus to see the COVID episodes and the Streaming Wars shit, for instance.
Which I can't see.
So that's the gist of it. That's the shortest version I can give you. So there you go, Paul. What's your take on that? And then we'll get to your super chats and all that stuff.
Well, I think that's fun. I mean, it's all part of the IP wars. I don't know. I got no dog in this fight.
Gotcha. Okay, so we'll come back to this.
Big game hunting. The lawyers make lots of money.
Oh yeah. So if we have some super chats for Paul here, I want to grab them first and foremost before you go.
Ever since they blamed Canada.
Thank you so much. 6 to Neil. Yeah. Paul, well, there's always Mass Effect 2 planet scanning mini game.
Yeah, I never played the mini game. I did like Mass Effect 2. That was maybe my favorite of the three. But a great game. Mass Effect was just fantastic. Really enjoyed it.
I love the universe too as well.
Universe was fantastic. I loved the characters. Really enjoyed them. Great writing in it.
There you go. And do we have
certainly
any
more diverse than The Last of Us, but I'm enjoying Last of Us. It's funny. I'm not allowed to enjoy things that other people don't want me to enjoy. Like I just reviewed the Turning Red. I went, yes. Yeah, I liked it. What? How can you like those jelly bean mouths? Well, as an Aardman animation fan, Wallace and Gromit, that's all they did was jelly bean mouths. I'm a huge jelly bean mouth fan. So filled with teeth,
There you go.
It's amazing the things that people zero in on. How could you stand the jelly bean mouths on Turning Red? Well, because I don't know. I liked it. You can't like anything anymore.
Well, that is all your super chats, Paul. So
Okay.
if you have to leave us, you can exit.
I do. I'm going to go produce some sketch comedy.
Nice.
Hopefully it's funny. It's pretty
Awesome.
nasty, actually. So I will I'll see you gentlemen. Enjoy yourselves.
All
Say
right.
hi to Andre wherever
Well, it sounds
he
like
is.
I'm going to be by myself here in a few minutes, but all right, take care of yourself.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
So I got you for 3 more minutes, I guess, Script. So what's your take
10
on the
more
South Park? Or 10 more minutes? Okay,
Yeah.
10 more minutes. So what's your South Park? What's your take on the South Park stuff?
Not much. Like, listen, Paramount's trying to, make money off of something that they spent had a huge investment in, and I don't begrudge them for that. But at the same time, Warner Brothers is justifiably upset because they probably that the money that they're trying to make is probably coming out of what HBO Max is trying to get from that as well. We'll have to wait and see how this further goes, because technically Paramount isn't doing anything illegal. If there is a loophole that allows them to do specials or films, and that's what they've been doing, and technically speaking, the products, the South Park specials, do count and qualify as that, they are well within their right to do so. But if there is some sort of language in the contract that prohibits them from doing that, and they violated that, then HBO Max is worthy of compensation. Okay, then.
All right. Yes. Sorry, I was talking to Six in the background here. So until we know more on that, there isn't really much more we can say on that, but we do have some super chats. So as long as you got a few more minutes here, let's get through some of these. Elf says, I agree with you on Lightyear. And the first time I saw the trailer in the theater, it looked like one of those Oscar beat movies I automatically skip. It just didn't look appealing to me from beginning to end. So yeah, I don't blame you there. Daryl Brewer's gifted 20. Holy crap. Midnight's Edge memberships. Thank you again, Daryl Brewer, for that. We appreciate it. That was amazing. Austin Khan says Disney needs Uprising season 2 and get the writers back. People are frustrated that it's not on DVD. Yeah, well, if the Tron 3 is successful, you never know what could happen. So fingers crossed on that. Gunstar 1 says, I have a question. There's a rumor that The Expanse is going to continue on HBO Max. Any truth to that? I have not heard anything.
It's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah, not that I know of, but that's news to me if it's true. It's been saved once by a fan campaign. It could happen again, but very unlikely, I would think. But yeah.
I mean, not too unlikely. Like, they do have, there is a gap in time with the books that is currently being occupied today. So they could get away with it, but I don't know. It's a little too early to tell at this point.
Yeah, maybe. Austin Webb says, what's the likelihood that Disney is overinflating Marvel movie costs to hide losses? You're talking movie math. That's very possible.
Well, that's not how it would work. They'd actually have to underinflate movie costs to hide losses.
Yeah.
That you can't. Making a movie more expensive does not hide the loss. Does not do well to hide losses. Making it appear more cheap can hide losses, because then they just say, oh yeah, it didn't really cost $250 million. It cost $150 million. And then like, well, where'd the other $100 million go? On crickets. And so yeah, and in some cases, some movies don't even cost that much. They just have that price tag because someone else is taking a little bit more for themselves to, do whatever they want with that.
Well, what I think Austin is saying here, at least if I'm interpreting this right, is more or less along the lines of like, yeah, the movie only cost X amount. They say it cost this much. But then, like you said, where did that extra money go? If that's the case. So yeah. Whose pocket?
I will say it's far more suspect with the amount of effects houses that they've been commissioning for their films over the last 5 years than you'd expect it to be. There's something weird there going on. But I mean, that's starting to change right now, because what we just learned now between Wakanda Forever and Ant-Man and Quantumania is that the effects houses had to put more priority with Wakanda Forever and less with Ant-Man. And that explains why a number of the effects in Ant-Man do not measure up.
There you go. And then we have a Nightwish fan 1991 who says, is it bad of me to hope that the current WGA strike goes through? Yes, the '08 one did a lot of damage, both short and long term. These days, I feel that modern day writers not writing is a blessing. Script, this is one that you could probably address more so, I guess. But I see where Nightwish fans coming from here.
Well, it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. If anything, what the strike will do is they'll just get more people that are of the woke regard
Right.
in the room to write something than those that aren't, because there's far more of them that are not in the WJ that are desperately trying to break in, and a writer strike can afford them that opportunity. So it's very double-edged sword right now.
Yeah, but I see your point here, and I see where script's coming from too, though. Paulus Plain says Midnight's Edge with love, Norway. Well, thank you, Paulus Plain. At least there's one Norwegian that showed up today. I watched that Volodymyr Zelensky 365-day war press conference. Can the misery of the war forge a new entertainment? New Cold War shit, I think he means. That's a good question.
I mean, like, could the James Bond franchise be reinvigorated with actual spy stories again?
I don't see why not.
I mean, it's a really bad trade-off, in my opinion. I'd prefer there not to be a Cold War, and
I prefer not. No, yes,
but I understand where you're coming from there.
And joking aside, no, yeah,
tragedy and difficulty can foster beautiful works of art and creativity. It's difficult to do so, but I really don't wish harm on other people.
No, exactly. All joking aside, benefit. No, exactly. Yeah. And then Tennille, sorry we didn't get this when Cameron was here. It obviously came in after he was gone. Says Cameron, I can't help but enjoy Schadenfreude hitting Disney, but I will admit in this case the scale of it kind of feels like catching an ice cream cone because a child you dislike was hit by a car.
Huh?
Okay, I get what he's saying here. Basically, like, you're more worried about the ice cream cone than you are the kid that got hit by the car because you don't care about the kid. So I can't help but enjoy Schadenfreude hitting Disney. Okay, so yeah, but it's on the scale of gotcha. Okay, yeah, that's your feelings on it. And he says, "Pardon my typos." No worries, Tennille. I think we got the gist of it. So thank you. No worries about that. And yeah, I see where you're coming from there. STR Red Wolf says, hot tip. You can't have publishers changing your work if you self-publish your work. Taps head. Well, there's that aspect of it. But again, there's also you have to be able to get your work out there too. That's the thing that
some publishers do that. The other part too is sometimes you'll get a great publisher that'll get the best out of you with your writing. Usually they have a good editing team and story editors that are like, oh, I don't understand what this chapter is. And then, sometimes the writer just missed up on that. But it's the writer that has to come up with the solution. The good managing editor just says, these are the problems. And if we can get those resolved, we'll have a better book that will sell better. And the writer is the one that has to make the changes, not someone else. A good editor lets the writer make the changes. A bad editor does the changes themselves.
Well, and I'm sure in the future, if anything, more writers will want to put stuff in their contracts to make sure shit like this doesn't happen if they're that concerned with it.
Especially after it's been published, right?
Exactly. And I've heard also, I think maybe even you brought this up, script. Somebody did in the last few days when we were talking about this, where basically a lot of writers won't even turn in their work until really, really close to the deadline, so they know that it can't be fucked with, basically.
Oh, Chris Gore, yeah.
Yeah, Chris brought that up. That's right, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's true. I in publishing, I've dealt with that before with some of the fiction writers where they're like, yeah, the book comes in late and you only have enough time to, proof it and get it ready to go. It's because it's got to hit a release schedule. And so, yeah, you can't make any significant edits. Anything that you do is like really just grammatical.
Minor level stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. And then back up on the Paulus Plain when he said Midnight's Edge with Love, Norway. We got this one before, or he sent out another one, I think is what he did here. He says, I watched Vladimir Zelensky's press conference. Vladimir Zelensky, I don't need a ride, I need weapons. Okay. So that's the
and the change in outfit. He wears the same thing all the time.
Yeah. So that's what he was referencing. Gotcha. Then Ben Dowdy says, still waiting for Empress Teresa movie? Yeah, I guess I'd be waiting. Mecha J says from THR, Halle Bailey opens up about Little Mermaid racist backlash. As a black person, you just expect it. Playing the race card already. Well, of course they are. Of course they are. They have to. It was predetermined. They
Publicists
knew.
are telling her to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The Waltman says, I'm shocked Mortal Kombat 12 announced in Warner Brothers Call. I'm not. It's probably a big deal for them. Marksman of 117B says Atomic Hearts has bought Russia so many parts to build half a tank. LOL, loving the game while clowns cry over it and Hogwarts. The fridge was surprised. Yeah, I haven't played this game yet, but I've been hearing a little bit about it. So it sounds like you're enjoying it. And then he says there's a lewd fridge robot in the game. All I can think with AI getting big is how it will become a thing. Fridge is made to flirt with people. Oh, excellent. Is it to make you eat more? Would you buy such a fridge?
Very
I don't
obsessed
know.
with this fridge.
Yes. If my fridge talked to me, it would just tell me how fat I am.
Are you hungry, Marksman?
Yeah. That's what my fridge would ask me. You know you're hungry, Tom. Come make some food. Pinochet's helicopter tour says mocking was previously known as heckler's veto. Oh, there's that too. Yeah.
Well, it combats hecklers. A heckler is there to make attention for themselves, and if you mock a heckler, you're taking back control of the show.
Yeah. Matthias Fredrickson says, stunned at myself at how excited I am at the Lord of the Rings news. It is good news, and competition is good. I think it will definitely help the situation quite a bit. Return of the Savage Sword says, Hail Midnight's Edge. Did you guys see that J.K. Simmons is voicing one villain's General Thorm in Baldur's Gate 3, PC, PS5? I did not, but good for him. He's a good voice actor.
Oh yeah, cool. And he's got Invincible Season 2 coming out sometime later this year.
Yeah. Insane Hippie Insane says Embracer Group. You mean the same company that owns Volition Studios that just lost $100 million on that woke Saints Row reboot? Probably one and the same. Mm-hmm. Snell's World says Pizza Dude's got 30 seconds. Thank you so much for that, Snell's World. And Jesus Davila sends a thumbs up. Thank you so much, Jesus Davila, for that thumbs up. We appreciate it. If you haven't hit that thumbs up yet, please do. It doesn't cost you a thing. But Jesus did donate $10 for that thumbs up. Thank you so much. Mecha J says South Park's real life streaming wars minus the PP.
The PP, yeah.
It kind of is. It's. I think they almost telegraphed some of this shit. Like they knew, and they were calling some of the shit out right in those specials.
They were great specials.
they were excellent. And the new the new series, the new episodes this year have been great too, so far. If you haven't checked them out, Elf is here and he says, "Script: if James Gunn succeeds with the new DC plan, what could be the big event movie that brings everything together?"
I have no idea.
I think he's talking like a Justice League kind of event thing, but yeah.
I mean, ones that we haven't seen before, the Appalachians that formed the team of the Justice League. And it's a very tight story because even though things happen throughout the whole world is not, it's not like an end of the world Infinity War type of thing. So it's a level that allows you to grow higher. I think that'd be an interesting one. It's a story that not a whole lot of people know about. And it's got some interesting aspects that happen to the Justice League that might appeal to creatives like James Gunn. So there's that part. DC doesn't have, or at least for the majority of DC, they did not have a bunch of huge event crossovers, as you'd think, like Crisis on Infinite Earths and all the Crisis series, even the Armageddon 2000 is just a handful of some of the things that they did. Most of the times, the crossovers would be very intimate, very contained. You'd have like Green Arrow and Green Lantern. You'd have Superman appearing in Death in the Family. That's just stuff that I can think of off the top of my head, but I can't think of many huge event comics like War, like Marvel's Secret Wars or Secret Invasion or Civil War, or like all those things that they had. So
I'm going to go out on a limb and say we may not see necessarily a huge crossover event in Chapter 1. Because if you look at the movies and the shows and stuff that we've got info on so far, it's all building up to something, but we don't have any crossover event movies necessarily yet. And of course, there's a few spots that haven't been announced yet. But it feels like to me they're just building the groundwork right now. And then the next chapters when they'll probably start doing a lot of crossover events. Hell, chapter 2 might kick off with a proto Justice League or whatever kind of movie. As I say, Avengers, just kind of how, that movie kind of ended the first phase or whatever it was. But kind of like that, basically. I don't know. We'll see. And then we have Ghost Rider, who's become a member. Thank you so much, Ghost Rider. We appreciate that. And then Tennille says, I meant it's like receiving good news that came as the result of something bad befalling someone else, even if you don't like them. Yes. And that's what I said. We kind of got what you were saying. But thank you for clarifying. We appreciate that. And then we have Gonzalo Bergali, who says, and remember, the Snyderverse will be saved on the 30th of February. That is correct. So we're just a few days away from that big news, guys. Get ready.
And if it doesn't happen on the 30th of February, it'll happen on the 31st of April.
That's right. If not the first, maybe. But that, my friends, is all she wrote. And I don't see any reason in dragging it out any longer since script has to leave me anyway. I appreciate you sticking around, my friend, more than you realize. And 6, thank you so very much for all of your help in the background. I would have been so lost today if it wasn't for you. I want to thank Paul. I want to thank Cameron. I want to thank Culture also for being here today. I want to thank you guys out there for listening. Script Doctor, are you going to do any Viking or anything coming up here you want to plug for your channel?
No, but I did some yesterday, and it wasn't any mining. I actually fought a giant slug beast that was vomiting at me. So, it does have actual combat in the game. But just if you haven't already and you are interested in screenwriting tips and reviews of screenplays, films, and television, you can join my Patreon.
Yes, check out his Patreon.
On tomorrow I will be doing, tomorrow's Saturday. So tomorrow I'll have releasing the Dan Aykroyd Ghostbusters 3 Hellbent 2006 draft that he sent to Sony Pictures to try and get the movie made. So I'll be reviewing that. And if you're a Patreon member, you'll be able to check that out.
I should check and see if Andre has your on our Patreon yet. I want to see that. So with that, Paulus Plain sends us in one more super chat for 200 Norwegian krona and says, Midnight's Edge with love, Norway. I watched the Vladimir Zelensky's 365-day war press conference. Vladimir Zelensky, the man of the hour. Long live NATO and long live freedom. Thank you all, fans. Slava Ukraini. I think if I'm saying that right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Paulus Plain, for the support. And I'm sure Vladimir appreciates the support as well. And with that, as Andre says, it is time for Koalas in the Rain.
Koalas in the rain. Koalas in the rain. No fucks given. Koalas in the rain. Koalas in the rain. No fucks given.